It's okay, Brennan. We were trying to find everybody was putting an AP.
Kaspersky is
There.
Really?
is what you put on this computer.
Rain.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
it is first. Let's see.
Google's wanting to take over my homepage now.
Says
That's been an
phone ring.
update.
Oh, I suppose, so she says.
Just in case.
I do, well, fine.
Good morning. I'm Kevin Day, Chair of the Custer County Board of Commissioners. Today is Thursday, May 19th, 2022. The time is now 9 a.m. and I will call the meeting this order of the Board of County Commissioners being held at the Silver West Airport. If you do have your cell phones, please silence them at this time. And sir.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Kelly, if we can get a roll call, please.
Commissioner Day,
Here.
Commissioner Kanda,
There.
Commissioner Flower.
Present.
Attorney Clint Smith. Is he zooming in or?
He was gonna, I'm not allowed on.
I
He
think
told
so,
me he
yeah.
was gonna zoom in, yeah.
There's someone that says Custer County Attorney. So.
Okay, that must be him.
It could be him or his alter ego.
Just take a wild guess.
And clerk to the board, Kelly Camper.
Okay, audience introductions, and we'll start over here, James.
James Gilbert.
JC Nindy.
Jackie Hoppy, Custer County Planning and Zoning. Deb Adams. Lisa Bivens, Finance and HR.
Braden Wilson, same.
Sarah Carl, Secretary of the Airport Board.
Ryan Anderson, Chair, Airport Board. And Donor Leader.
Donut eater. Okay. All right, and then if someone goes to speak later, we'll have them identify themselves for the record, and the same with someone online. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Not from me.
No, sir.
Okay, none here either.
Olivia, will you call that from, please, Olivia?
What? It's a dirty.
He's in the hospital, so I'm assuming that's nurses.
Okay, and we had no minutes today. Commissioner items. Flower.
Thank you, sir. Trying to get organized here this morning. Can't say I'm doing a great job of it yet. Just a second, there we go. I'll defer. Just give me a second. if you would. Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Kanda.
Items that we're talking.
Yes.
Couple of quick things. Got a lot of meetings coming up to make everybody aware of that we're going to be either available or not. Connect is this next Monday, Tuesday. I'll be at that, and I know there's a tipper. I think, Tom, you're probably going to, or both of you will be working that with the Department of Transportation. They got a meeting going on Monday, unless it's moved. If I can find it.
Are you talking about the,
It's the 23rd. It's the Front Range TPR. That's the one.
yes,
I won't be there, but after the Mountain Connect, which we've got Mark Carmel and is the contractor we have for the broadband program, fiber program that we've got. We'll do a PMR, program management review of it and other where we stand with the program for both the town and both towns.
when's that?
We'll schedule as soon as we get back off the meeting, and that'll be probably the second week in June. As soon as it will happen. Also, there is no mid-month meeting, correct, in June still. That the way we did. Yeah, we'll remind everybody. Then we have the CCI meeting, which is the 31st for the 3rd. Is that the way it is?
First and second, I believe.
And that's up in Vale, so all three of us will be there. I suspect. Then the big deal is, you saw the big tank out here, really cool. And we'll let the airport guys talk about it, but in the meantime, BA, where are you?
Back here.
Well, there you are, I'm looking past you. Hold that ramp up. The congressionally directed spending grant, or just spending offer that we applied for with Hickenlooper's office. I've been in touch with them a bunch. They've asked for our tax exempt number and they're working whether the eligibility on this. So that ramp expansion involves expanding the ramp physically, and you can point to that. And it also involves putting in a new taxiway.
And just for orientation, this angle is that right there as you look out the window. So it would be just about like this. For it to make sense geographically.
In the taxiway, the other taxiway will come up off of it. So that'll allow big airplanes to come and go and not interfere with the other general aviation aircraft. And the other thing it does, it puts a fuel farm together with a diesel or a Jet A tank. So we will at some point, that the cost of moving this tank would be included in that. The new tank, and that will all be co-located where it ought to be so traffic can get in and out. And the reason they are excited about it is it not only because of the economic impact it has to the county, and one of the criteria was the impact to the state. And that's why some things weren't approved. This one has an impact to the state as well, because it also saves lives. Because right now, without that Jet A in here, the loiter time over a target on Crestone needles, a person can die by the time they go back and refuel it and come back. Time's increased, and as well as other training projects. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, thanks. It's kind of fortuitous. There's a fire asset sitting right in the corner of the airfield right now. They've been tankering fuel in here to support that airplane. I don't know the exact status of the
That's why it has
airplane right now.
pontoons on it. It lands in the lake and tanks up.
But you can see the access to the mountains and the fire dangers. And if we could, come up with the Jet A tank, which Colorado Division of Aviation right now has a matching grant up to 400,000 per tank for the Jet A. We could allow search and rescue, fire, perhaps the Colorado National Guard would come in, and we would have those we could support those types of operations if we had Jet A here. And that's something we'd like to go for down the road. And that airplane right there, of course, needs Jet A. And like I said, they're tankering the fuel in to support it now.
And we've been very, very lucky. The other criteria was that if it was on our long range plan, and it is, and it has been since day one. And we've been lucky with people volunteering to spend money, like the BOCC who paid for the expansion, the berm removal, so that the big airplanes with wings that are hanging 10 feet over each side of our runway don't run into the ground, as well as the card reader, which is out here, is a new card reader, and it's capable of both Jet A and avgas. So, and the volunteers, that's the reason I bring it up. I want to thank. You can't measure the amount of work the volunteers have done out here to make all this happen, and the great relationship they've got and we have with the state, the state aviation department. So I wanted to bring that up. So that doesn't, no guarantee, but it's not big money in the big picture, and it's big money to us, and it saves lives. So that's.
Are you showing me during the meeting?
Yeah, Clint.
Can you hear us? I guess not. Clint.
Well, hang on.
Okay. Well, while he's hanging on, just one last thing I'll mention. The dark skies thing with Governor Polis, I'm confused a little bit, but I did understand the dark skies president, Chuck Yago, who's a long life valley.
Can you Okay,
I'll just tell you what I know is that he's coming, and I'll let Debbie can chime in here in a minute.
I am or I'm not.
Can you hear us, Clint?
I can hear you.
We can hear you as well. So yeah, you're on the sounding
Okay,
good.
very good.
All right.
Thanks,
So
Fran.
bottom line there, the first notification was Monday maybe, but it looks like it's slipping to Friday. If it's Monday, then some of us can't make it. And if it's Friday, maybe we all can make it. And you might want to mention that if you know more about it. Then,
I'm waiting for an email from Chuck to kind of confirm,
yeah, Chuck is,
hopefully today.
okay. All right, that's all I had for now. Oh, one last thing. There is a Memorial Day coming up. And we've been all invited, all three of us and others, to it's a recognition of not just people fought in wars, but people that have given a lot of their lives to this country. So want to keep that in mind, and that's coming up sooner or later. And I hope it's not going to blow us into the next county when we do it, but you never know. So thanks.
Can you define big airplanes when you say that?
The Falcon 900 is what you see coming in and out of here, and that's depictive of that size. It's a cabin class with a stewardess on board class aircraft that you see and squiring dignitaries around, as well as CEOs and people that have.
Okay, no A330s.
No, but this runway could land a C-130. If it could. I don't know if we can get it out. I think we can get it out of here because that comes in and out of a lot of places. But this runway is rated for that low category without, and it has been without us doing a lot. By the way, OT6 did pay for and we shared it, the drilling of the runway to make sure. And that's what you see some of these slugs around. Make sure the load capability is what it is. That's also made us very eligible because and we've got the AWAS that they just played, and we're the last airport. There's only two that in the state that hadn't gotten them. We were one, and now we're on the National Transportation System, which makes us more eligible. All right, that's all I had.
Oh, thank you, sir. Let's see. On May 5th, I attended the CES meeting down at the fire department, first one of the last couple of years. So I appreciate Adrian putting that together. I think everybody was glad to start getting back to meeting in that group. We didn't have a great turnout, but I think as we move forward, we will. Hopefully we'll get a rep from the school and get back up and running with that. On May 5th, I went up and attended the grand opening of the Behavioral Health Crisis Center, the new building just west of the hospital. And got a tour of that. There were, I think, 4 of us, maybe 5 from Custer County that went up. Dr. Brown and I drove up together. So that was nice. Great facility. Looks like they're going to offer a lot of treatment services out of that deal. It's a 14-bed, 7 on a low security and 7 on a high security side. And they're very excited about that. I talked to a couple of the people on the board, and they think maybe the next thing is they're going to try to get another one of those facilities built down in Fremont County. So we'll see. That was nice. If you drive up on that highway by the airport or by the hospital, then there's another new building that's a eye care center, and then the Behavioral Health Crisis Center is right behind that to the west. So very nice building, well lit. And so I'm glad I went up and looked at that for sure. On the 6th of May, I met with a roofing contractor, talk about getting another bid on fixing the roof on the County building, I haven't heard back from him yet, so. And of course, we had the special BOCC meeting that we met down in Lang Hall, dealt with sheriff appointment. And we had a Custer County Recycles meeting on the 11th. On the 12th, I went up to Slida and attended their Upper Arkansas Water Conservancy District meeting. And then the 13th, I attended the training that Christy Holt put on at Lang Hall for the, was that a 1200 class or 1002? 1002. I've actually got it written at 1002, but I didn't think that was right. So that was interesting. And then on the 17th, I attended the weed board meeting in the commissioner room. And then in that afternoon, I attended the Region 15 Opioid Consortium Zoom meeting, of which 4 of us are voting members on that. And we were down to selecting 2 out of 4 criteria that we want to funnel funding to. Looks like $250,000 over the next 2 years. Recovery was one of the areas. Staffing for behavioral health, youth programs, and then anti-stigma campaign for try to create it. It would be mostly an ad program throughout the region to encourage people to seek help on drug use disorders. And so there were 8 or 10 of us in the voting. They selected staffing for behavioral health and the anti-stigma campaign as the 2 things that they want to shovel their money or our money to over the next 2 years. We're going to meet again in person in Salida in a couple weeks. So that's kind of my meeting schedule. So we're good. Glad to see the fuel tank out here. That's huge. Nice to get some money to help purchase that thing. So very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A couple things from me. Some of you are aware, some of you are not aware. Longtime resident of Wetmore, John Spar, has been to our meetings down there. He did pass away on Sunday. So I just thought I would make some of you aware of that. And so I'm putting out prayers for his family right now. And
No word about a service.
not at this time yet. Had a lot of people, a lot of family there when we got home yesterday, so I did not go and bother them then. We do have a couple other items here that I'm going to bring up. One is we had spoken earlier of having Braden conducting staff meetings. I don't know if we decided on that or if we just visited on that. So I wanted to address that here this morning. I think it would be a good idea. And so I thought we could address that here this morning just to make sure we're all on the same page on that and there's no confusion.
We'll do that now.
I think we can do that now, and then I've got one other item. So comments from you, gentlemen?
Well, I was just going to ask what Braden's take on that was. Feel like that's a good direction to go, or?
I do. I think this last meeting was beneficial, and as we continue to kind of build that out, different ways that we might be able to make that more, I guess, inclusive in trying to get as many people in and get their voices heard as possible. I do think that there was a suggestion from that last meeting that involved having a more informal time with the commissioners that I think would be good to add in addition to staff meetings. Just like, maybe once a year or something like that, having some time to speak with the commissioners in a non-meeting setting, just to have that opportunity. But I think as far as the day-to-day operations and just the ability to say anything that we could be doing better or to kind of talk about things that we are doing well, certainly be willing to lead that effort.
Yeah, I've given some thought about what the purpose of that staff meeting is and historically was. I don't really know prior to my coming into office how that was dealt with. I would like to ask Jackie, is that staff meeting really an opportunity to meet with the commissioners, or was it a chance to meet together as a group and there just happened to be a commissioner attended that? Do you have some input on that?
Kelly can help me out, but it started out to meet with the commissioners.
Yeah, that's what it's always been.
Yeah.
And that was the concern that something that is like all the staff would get together and meet with the commissioners and they'd all take turns running the meeting, because the staff felt like some things shouldn't be aired until everyone got together.
Historically, did all three commissioners attend those over the years, or
No,
just
they took
one?
turns.
Just like we've been doing, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, and as Braden was speaking, I thought about that. I thought, well, maybe the intent was to have employees have the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with a representative from the commissioners. This would circumvent that unless we had another meeting that we did that in, which you had talked about, so.
And really, we've only had them 5 years.
Yeah, 4 times a year.
Really?
Yeah.
So we started when we came into office. So.
We had them when the previous commissioners started it. Because we wanted the staff to be able to air their differences with the commissioners.
Is it something we could do, the staff meeting with Braden and then a coffee with the commissioners at a different time, or should we just leave it?
Do we need donuts too?
No donuts. No donuts. The only time we get donuts is when we come down here. So I don't know what you think about another meeting, or if we're taking time out of their workday to do that. So I don't know about doing it twice.
Yeah, or let's see, we do it quarterly, so maybe like the way we did it last time, I thought worked good, because Bill, were you I think you were the commissioner that came last time. He came in first and then Reggie finished it up.
And I wondered maybe about having a staff meeting first and then have the commissioner come in and deal with the product of that staff meeting, whatever that might be. I don't know. That might save us a meeting. And so maybe the last half or third of that meeting, we could get on that, saying that rotational schedule and doing that.
Yeah, I got a couple of thoughts on that too, ever since we've been doing that. The way we've been handling it, we call the staff reports, and, that's nice to hear. But usually, unless there's a big issue, it's sort of, I think, wasting your time personally. And so I like the thought, a real staff meeting in any corporate world or in the government world, whether it's a state or federal. It's an opportunity, and we do need to have everybody there, even though they may not have anything to say, because they need to hear what the other people in the same organization's issues are, because it could impact them either in a budget sense at some point or in moving furniture or whatever the staff is. And that's why I think it's good for one commissioner, because if you get two of them or three, then you gotta have a workshop and, you know, or you're gonna make decisions or not. Those, it could be the staff meeting can be that get together where you bring something bigger to the board to resolve. I think it's important to be able to talk to you casually and back and forth. I think that's a good opportunity because there's things that might bug you, be unwilling to say in a formal meeting with the whole world listening on Zoom, you know. And because we're allowed to do that. We have an organization to run the county business part of it that doesn't affect the taxpayers at all. And in theory, and if it was going to affect it, then we would bring that to the board to make it known. So I like the idea of each of us sharing time. Once a quarter is probably, maybe it ought to be more often. Maybe it's once every 2 months if they're, you know, I don't know. It's up to you guys. But I like that idea, and we can cut maybe the meeting time. I don't know that we need 2 meetings at the first of the month. If we have 3 meetings a month, first month, middle of the month, at the end of the month, that's a lot of, unless there's a need, because we're scrambling, people try to find things to say, and then we end up saying a lot of time for 4 hours that we don't need to spend more than an hour on. So it's up, you know, it's something to discuss, and maybe come back if you want to make a decision today and discuss that.
Well, I'd like to see us stay on the staff meeting or staff report days. I mean, if we didn't, then that staff meeting day would end up being, I think, fairly protracted, but I like the idea of having Braden lead the first half and then rotate the commissioners in on the second half of the staff meeting day. And then that representative could bring those concerns back to the board at the next meeting.
Yeah, because this is, I think, totally separate issue than,
Yeah.
than the staff reports
Right.
on the first of the month. I've attended one of these. I thought it was a good meeting when I was there. But there had been some things voiced that maybe some people would not want to come and voice it to the commissioners where they might with Braden.
Right.
So a split type deal might work pretty good, or we have 4 quarters, we could do commissioners, and then you could be there if somebody else wanted to voice something, and then maybe you could run the 4th one. I don't know. That's
Good
just
for me.
another
I-
option.
Works either way.
I'd be willing to try it at least on a trial basis, split that for a meeting or 2, and then if we need to change it, good.
Just go ahead and keep our schedule like it is, and then have us for a few minutes, and then Braden, or vice versa.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
You may.
Some of the issue too was, it says staff meeting. So a lot of times it's just the heads of the office go. I think it would be beneficial if one of the meetings was like Kelly's group of girls and guys that work for like in my office, it'd be nice if the clerk got to go to one of the meetings, because maybe she has issues that she would like to bring up. And so when it says staff, yeah, it's really nice to get everyone that's elected or head of the office, but I think it'd be nice if staff really actually got to go once or twice.
I think, I felt that they were welcome to be there, but maybe we didn't make that clear, or maybe I was mistaken.
I agree. They should be there. They can come, but you can invite them.
The problem
It's just hard because
my rights here, I gotta go.
like if all my staff wanted to go, I'd have to close my office.
Yeah.
For an hour, or whatever, which,
Yeah, I always thought staff and elected officials, department heads were welcome. But
and I
Great.
guess maybe that's just something that you have to work out in your office.
Sure.
Might be that
You
part of
two
it
go
go
this
this time.
time, you two.
Like, you know, you got a leak over somebody's desk. It'd be nice to have the guy at the desk talking about it with you.
Great.
I do think that's a great point. That's one that I wanted to bring up, is maybe not this time, this next one, but consideration at some point of it being on a day that makes sense, that we have towards the end of the day, that we can close the courthouse early, and then we can have everybody there. Take an hour or two, close it at 2 or 2:30, and that be kind of a gathering that everybody can attend. I think is well worth the time to do that.
So what I'm hearing is that we're in agreement probably to do a split type meeting at this time
I would support that.
and make it available to all staff at this point, not to the point of closing an office down. So I guess like you, if Kayla wanted, well, you could hang a sign on your door, I suppose. Kayla's not there right now anyway, but so if there's only 2 people in an office and you can make it work, you can do that. Kelly's office has quite a bit of people coming in, so you know, we just have to work around some of this stuff until maybe we did have a spot where we could tell people in the public that, hey, we're gonna be closed for a couple hours.
So the next meeting is May 31st. Commissioner Canada is scheduled to be the rep on that meeting. And I thought about that. Is having a staff meeting on payroll day a good idea? Is it a problem with you guys?
No, that should be fine, because we've pretty much done all the processing. It's just a
Okay.
matter of handing out checks, so that wouldn't be anything extra for us.
Yeah, you got a new world now, and better be working.
One other thing on that particular date is that's the day we're leaving to go to CCI.
Yeah, that's true. We're cutting and running right after the meeting, so.
I looked at the schedule. I'm not worried about missing the front end.
Should we have,
Okay.
does Braden run that whole meeting or?
I don't mind
You're
missing
the-
what I'm.
Okay, you're the,
I'll get up there soon enough, and what it was on the front end, I had suggested that one thing that would have been interesting, and with Reggie resigning, maybe it doesn't matter anymore, was a PIO discussion on the first day. Sounded good for our public information officer to be there. But anyway, other than that, one of you guys can hit it.
well, I'm leaving. You're scheduled to be there if you, it's up to you. You're saying you do want to go right away to the conference or not?
No, I was gonna say, I don't mind missing.
Oh,
that.
okay. Missing the conference.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the staff meeting, we can just. press it.
Well, you're the scheduled rep for the commissioners that day anyway, so
That's right.
you're not opposed to.
No, I'm not. I haven't said I.
So, all right, well, let's make that a plan then, so you can count on that, and then we'll try a blended meeting and see how that works out, and if we need to tweak it down the road, we can do that.
And I will plan then to lead that, and put the agenda and everything together until told otherwise, if that's okay.
That starts at 1, so. And then if you could, moving forward, not just that meeting, but get kind of a feel of what time you think the commissioner rep ought to come in.
Sounds good.
The other thing that I have that I wanted to bring up now that we can address at this time probably is we did receive a lease agreement for the public health and the building that they are in. We just received that. I don't know, probably I'm the only one with a copy of it right now. Okay. You have a copy? The lease is going up. I believe it's $12.50,
For this year.
and then next year it will go to $1,500. And I believe that's the only change in lease that I know of.
I would move we approve the 2022 lease agreement for the public health office.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to accept the lease for the 2022 lease agreement for the public health office. Any discussion?
Well, we entered into that lease, I guess this will be our third year. And property owner was real good to work with. He did some work. He allowed us to do some work. Never paid a deposit, just kind of on a true handshake until we got this lease done that first year. And I just appreciated his willingness to work with us. So we expected over the years that lease would go up. We started at
Hi,
$1,000.
Are you still on the Zoom call?
And that was
I'm
just
sorry.
a
Are you still on?
result of a general discussion. We just sat down and talked about it, and that's kind of what we came up with for a proposal. So I think it's reasonable
Likewise.
until we can get a new facility built. Oh, I didn't say that, did I?
Okay, anything from the audience here? Seeing any hands online either. Okay, those in favor of accepting the 2022 lease agreement for the public health building signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
We might at some point have Clint, when he gets back, to look at that. We're really, doesn't say that, I don't think, the inclusive terms of that lease. So we're really agreeing on the $1,500 thing to move that forward to how long, we don't know. That was never really addressed, but so May 31st. Well, it is covered because this lease is from June 1st, 2022 to May 31st, 2025. So the inference is the 4 years would be at $1,500.
Yeah.
And the first year is at $1,250. So it is kind of
okay,
addressed. So we all three need to sign it.
yes,
I thought you were handing me to look at it.
no, that's fine. If it goes to you last, you can pass it on down.
Okay.
All right,
Good plan.
Clint,
I'll take that.
do you have anything, sir?
You want him to talk? Where is he?
I think. he
Can
might
you
have-
all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Now we can.
Okay, good. Well, since the last meeting that I attended, excuse me, I'm a little hoarse. I did a lot of research on the issue of selecting a person to appoint to finish out the term of Sheriff Byerly. I think I prepared 3 different memos that I sent to you all. And I understand it's on the agenda today for you to appoint under Sheriff Hill. I will have something to say at that point, but I don't have anything else to add right now.
Okay, anything else, sir?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. If I don't recognize you at that point, please feel free to jump in there, sir.
I will.
All right. Dorothy, do you have anything for us today? Anything from you, Kelly? No. This takes us to public comment. So if anyone has anything they'd like to bring up that's not on the agenda, please feel free to do so at this time.
A question from Ms. Adams. Our forthcoming, if I may,
Yes.
our forthcoming visit from the governor. Understand that is a result of a piece of legislation that was passed out of the House. I don't remember the number of the bill, but I also understand that there's a check coming with the governor. Are you aware of that?
A check for me?
No,
No, I'm not aware of that.
okay. I was told yesterday that legislation carried with it some financing. I think I could be wrong, but I think that governor's gonna bring a check for about $35,000 to $38,000 with him. I was told that money is to go to tourism.
Really?
Oh, now you're paying attention. Now, I could be off in the weeds, you know how that goes,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
so we'll see. I kind of raised my eyebrows too. I knew that was a part of a House bill, but I had no idea there was a fiscal requirement tied to that.
Well, I think that was the purpose of the bill, connected with Colorado Tourism Office in helping areas become dark sky areas or designation. I did not know about that, but that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I thought so. So I think the check probably comes to the county and then it'll be up to us to decide if it goes to tourism or go. That's what I was told, so we'll see.
Okay, and I guess we'll find out more when he arrives, and I did email Chuck to see if he can give me an answer while we're still here.
Yeah, and I emailed him last night and he said he's just like us. He's waiting to hear.
Yeah.
He may
and
have heard this morning.
I don't know if any of you are on social media, but I have to hope that the community will let this be a pleasant visit and focused on the dark skies, not on any other issues that people may have with the governor.
Well, certainly, we should rise above the political.
Well, we should, but I'm not quite sure
Yeah.
if it'll happen. I basically said if anybody has any complaints, please wait until we enjoy the experience and then, have your row with the governor.
And do you know who is in that whole thing? I think I asked you that once, but
Who is
the
in what?
event down at
Well,
the
so my
observatory.
understanding is that the governor's office reached out to Dark Skies Organization to coordinate it. And, there's rumors that I invited him and things like that. So I'm looking forward to the event. I think it's a great honor that they chose to come here as the first dark sky community. And that is why it is happening, why he is coming here. So I hope people will understand that and celebrate it. And this, there's such a major dark sky movement happening in Colorado. And for us to be a trailblazer with Smokey Jack getting it started, it's really it's a beautiful thing, and I hope we keep it that way.
Well, I hope I'm right in my information.
Oh,
Let's
me
put it
too.
that way. Do you have-
Just, so it's House Bill 22-1382, and it does mention $35,000 being transferred from the general fund to Colorado Travel and Tourism.
Oh, so maybe it's
So
going to
I think it's
CTO.
At the state
Okay,
level, and that's
so-
for education for international.
There we go.
So that's where the, yeah.
Sorry to be that.
Yeah. you-
Hey, nobody's planned.
Really close there.
That was a
So
big.
They'll spend it well.
part of what I was told was correct, not all of it.
Well, and then, also a thing to be proud of is that tourism is the fiscal agent for the Colorado Stargazing Program that started out with 5 communities. Now it's 10 communities. So we're trailblazers.
All right.
Can you ask for introduction from the 2 new people?
Back in the right hand corner, came in.
Oh, okay, yes. We have a couple back here that we didn't catch on introductions. If you guys could introduce yourselves, please.
Sure, you bet. My name is Ray Pedro, and I've been down in Custer County since '84. Off and on. I don't have a permanent residence here yet, out by the airport, or out here, I should say. But we do own Lot 5, and we will have a residence out here. We're about ready to throw the towel in and try the retirement thing. So we'll see how that, of course, everything's crashing. All of our accounts are going, there won't be any money left. I looked at the stock market this morning and it's gonna go down another 5,000 or 6,000 points today. I think so. Anyway, this is my lovely wife, Susan.
Nice to meet you, folks.
Nice to meet you. We're here in reference to a downgrade on a piece of property here at Custer.
Well, and I have to stand corrected if I may, Mr. Chairman. I've never met you. I've talked to you on the phone several times.
Yes, sir.
I've known your history here over the years. And I apologize because I have always pronounced your last name Pedro, but you pronounced it Pedro, and I will not forget that. So thank
It's
you.
Italian, but of course, when you come west or southwest.
Yeah, that gets lost, doesn't
There's
it?
Spanish and then there's Western.
Yeah, so
I'm not quite.
Salida.
nice to have you here.
Thank you for, I understand you slid us in on your agenda. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And we'll be ready whenever our turn comes.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
You're coming up.
Any other public comment? Great.
Bill mentioned the Memorial Day ceremony. I just wanted to give a couple more details for that, for those that are interested. That's 10 a.m. on Monday. And it's supposed to be at the Silver Cliff Memorial Park. But if there's inclement weather, it will be at the Saddle Club.
Oh,
So
okay.
people are able to make it. That day.
Maybe the leftover snowstorm might still.
I hope it's left over.
Okay, any unfinished business?
I've never.
New business. First item on the agenda is a consideration of appointing Robert Hill as Custer County Sheriff. At our special meeting, we did nominate him to hold that position.
And I'll move that we appoint Robert Hill sheriff.
Okay, we have a,
on the- And then I can spec out, I guess we discussed it at 1 minute after noon on the 20th is when it would take effect through January the 10th or whatever.
January 10th.
10th, I think is what it was. So we'll include that.
okay, so your motion is to appoint Robert Hill as sheriff on January 10th at 12:01.
20th,
May
May 20th.
to end on January.
Okay, May 20th, May 20th at 12:01.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion.
Well, I'd like to hear from our attorney before we get too deep in the weeds. If I may.
Are you still with us, Clint?
I am. Can you hear me now?
1 second, Clint, I should have said this as by way of discussion. He, and it was contingent on him being a resident at the time of the appointment, and I did talk with him since then, and he has found more housing that was available at better price. So he will be, and is perhaps moving even now. So,
Moved in yesterday
yeah, he moved in yesterday,
or Tuesday.
just to make
I'm sorry.
sure it did meet the criteria.
Okay, Clint.
Okay, as I had stated earlier, I had sent you several legal memos concerning appointing a person to take over as sheriff. This is not an interim position. This person becomes the sheriff and has to meet all the statutory and constitutional qualifications to be sheriff. And I thought I had made it clear in my last memo to you, which I wrote on May 8. The next morning, I came into Parkview for what I thought would be fairly routine surgery, and I'm still here at Parkview. However, I think that this is not allowed by the Constitution of the state of Colorado, and I have absolutely nothing against Under Sheriff Hill, but he does not meet the constitutional qualifications to become sheriff because he is not a qualified elector in the state of Colorado, and he has not lived, qualified elector in the county of Custer, and he has not lived in this county for a year preceding the appointment. I know the decision is essentially made. However, here's the problem that I see, the potential problem. If you appoint under Sheriff Hill to take over, and again, like I said, it's not an interim position. He becomes the sheriff. And as sheriff, one of the things he has to do is reappoint all of his deputies. And it's my very strong legal opinion based on some case law that I shared with you that I don't know if anybody else ever saw this case law, any of the other people you reached out to for legal opinions, but I'm going to take a moment to summarize this, because if you look at the statute, relating to appointing a replacement for a sheriff, the first case that comes up is a case Jackson versus State. The legal citation for anybody who wants to actually look at it is 966 Pacific 2nd, 1046. That's a 1998 decision by the Colorado Supreme Court. And in that case, Jackson was the sheriff of Morgan County. And he took the county to court on a legal issue. I'm not going to go into the details, but when you read that decision, they make reference to an earlier decision, Reale, R-E-A-L-E, versus the Board of Real Estate Appraisers. That's a case out of Adams County, and the legal citation for that case is 880 Pacific 2nd, 1205. And that was a Colorado Supreme Court decision in 1994. They both stand for the proposition that the General Assembly cannot change, add to, or take away from constitutional language. And that's very important, because the constitutional requirement for a sheriff, it's very simple. Section 10 of Article 14 talks about county elected officials, including the sheriff, being electors, qualified electors of the county, and having lived in the county for a year. You can't get around that. That's the Constitution, and that is still the Constitution. And anything that was done by the General Assembly subsequent to that does not change those provisions at all. And here's the point I'm getting at. You can appoint under Sheriff Hill. There is a statute that talks about how the undersheriff can step in and run the office. But that language says that the undersheriff can take over the office until a sheriff is appointed or elected and qualified. So Sheriff Byerly gave you plenty of notice. The office was going to become vacant if he had died on the job or become incapacitated. The undersheriff could have stepped in on a very temporary basis, but that statute does not stand for the proposition that the undersheriff can step in and become the sheriff for the remainder of the term of the elected sheriff. Here's the problem I see. If under Sheriff Hill becomes the sheriff, he is not legally the sheriff because he does not meet the constitutional qualification to be the sheriff. And if he appoints deputies to enforce the law in Custer County, those deputies are not legal law enforcement officers, because Under Sheriff Hill does not have the authority to appoint them to do that. And if these deputies are out there doing their job and an issue comes up where they or the county could be sued, any good attorney who looks into this could find this same thing and say, wait a minute, these guys are not law enforcement officers because they were not appointed by a sheriff who was legally appointed to finish out a term of a previous sheriff. So that's my concern. I think the county is leaving the door open for liability for the period of time from May 20 until mid-January, when a new sheriff will be taking office. Because under Sheriff Hill, you can appoint him as sheriff, but he isn't a qualified person to be sheriff because he's not an elected or qualified elector of Custer County, and he did not live here for a year prior to this appointment. I just wanted to put that on the record. That's my legal advice. And there could be ramifications way beyond anything that anybody might see if we go for a period of time from the end of this month all the way till next January without having a legal sheriff in that position. That's all I have to say.
Clint, if I may.
Yes.
In regards to Under Sheriff Hill being able to assume the responsibilities without an appointment, I think you stated in your statement there that cannot be for an extended period of time. Is that what I heard?
That's correct. The statute specifically says, and that's 30-10-505, says the undersheriff may take over until a sheriff is appointed or elected and qualified. So it's very clearly a temporary thing for the undersheriff to step in, not to become the sheriff for an extended period of time.
Thank you.
It doesn't define the time.
Anything else here? Mr. Farr?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Smith, can you hear me okay?
I can.
I don't discount what you are saying. Obviously, this has been in the fly in the ointment. So I have a question, a couple comments. As I read both the Constitution and the Colorado Revised Statutes, I wished either one of those documents would point out very clearly what elected officials, Board of County Commissioners, exactly could or should do when it comes to appointing a sheriff. I just don't believe that's the case. It is not spelled out very clearly. When you cite the Constitution, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the language says to be elected as the county sheriff. I never saw the word appointed in that language.
Well, I don't have all of my memos in front of me.
Okay, well, let me push on, and then you certainly interrupt or add your comments. Colorado Revised Statutes 3010-501.5 does, it's the only place I could find, and thanks to Kelly in part, the only place that I have seen in the language that it talks specifically about the appointment. And that statute 3010-501.5 spells out the qualifications. Number one says no person is eligible for nomination, election, or appointment to the office of sheriff unless the person A is a citizen of the United States, citizen of the state of Colorado, and a resident of the county to which the person is to be appointed or elected, possess a high school diploma or an equivalent, and then has a complete set of fingerprints. Now that's out of the statutes. That's the only time I've ever seen the word appoint, Clint. Again, as I pointed out, the Constitution only speaks to election, and we're not electing this person. So I guess if I'm looking for a way around this fly in the ointment, I would stand on the CRS 3010-501.5.
Well, as I said, the General Assembly cannot pass laws that are contrary to what's in the Constitution. And I'm trying to find section 9 and section 10 of Article 14 of the Constitution. Let's see. Section 10 is, well, you need to read section 9 and section 10 together. Section 10 is very brief, and it's obviously intended to supplement section 9, but it's, and let me look one other place here to see if I can get a better handle on it. Section 9 says, in case of a vacancy that occurs in a county office, the Board of County Commissioners shall fill the same by appointment. Any person appointed pursuant to this section shall hold the office until the next general election or until the vacancy is filled by election according to law. And then if you move on to section 10 of Article 14 of the Constitution, it says, no person shall be eligible to any county office unless he shall be a qualified elector, nor unless he shall have resided in the county 1 year preceding his election. That's in the Constitution. That constitutional language has never been changed. The purpose of the lawsuit, the case I talked about, Jackson versus the state, and then the earlier one as well, is because the General Assembly had gone ahead and added qualifications and requirements to hold office that were not addressed in the Constitution. And the Colorado Supreme Court on both occasions says the General Assembly can't do that. And in that final memo that I sent to you on May 8th, I think, I put some language in very bold type that quotes that earlier case, the Real case, that makes it very clear that the General Assembly cannot change, add to, or diminish any of the constitutional provisions. So, I mean, what you got here is what often happens. The General Assembly, and in the case of the sheriff, the Morgan County Sheriff, they had come up with all these post-certification requirements, and that's what that case was all about. And there, by referendum, the Constitution was actually amended to give them the authority to add some language about the post-certification, but the Constitution was never amended to take away the language, those two basic requirements of being a qualified elector and being a resident for at least a year. in my opinion, that language remains intact right up to this time. It was never changed. I don't know that anybody ever even gave it much thought, but that's what the Constitution says. And whatever the General Assembly put in that other statute you're making reference to, 30-10-105.1, that authority to change the Constitution was not given to the General Assembly. So as it stands, it's still anybody who is going to fill a vacancy, whether by appointment or by election, has to meet those constitutional requirements.
So what is your recommendation, Clint?
Well, I guess I don't know if I have one at this point because there have been a whole lot of people doing legal research on this and coming up with different answers on different things. All I can say is that based on my 50 years of legal experience and interpreting statutory law and constitutional law, I feel very, very strongly that my opinion is correct, and that if it's very possible it will never become a challenge, that nobody will ever say, hey, wait a minute, while Undersheriff Hill was serving as sheriff, one of his deputies did something, and it's, we're going to sue the county for millions of dollars, and he wasn't even a legal law enforcement officer because only the sheriff can appoint deputies. It may never happen. I mean, the obvious solution would be to accept the initial recommendation of Sheriff Byerly to appoint Sergeant Schock to step in and be appointed. He does satisfy not only those statutory qualifications, which are all secondary as far as I'm concerned, he satisfies the two primary qualifications, being a qualified elector in Custer County and having lived in Custer County for at least a year. So does the other candidate for that matter. So either one of those could fill the job. And it's not like, it's not an interim thing. This person becomes the sheriff. So you don't talk about a temporary sheriff or an interim sheriff, it's the sheriff. And I mean, to be on the absolute legal side, that would be my recommendation, but I'm not going to argue the point any further than this because I know you've gotten a lot of different input from different sources. I don't know, I didn't see all of it, but I didn't see that any of those other sources relied on the two cases I cited to you and that language that I found in that one case that I submitted to you in bold type about the General Assembly cannot change, add to, or diminish the constitutional language is, I mean, that's about as clear as it gets to me.
Okay, I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Comments. Thank you, Clint, for that, and thank you for sending it to us earlier. I've read every word that you said, and I considered your recommendation. Our job here is not to argue ourselves to convince the attorney. He makes recommendations, and he did based on the black and white of his interpretation. I also did the research, as did we mentioned this before, and I'm not going to rehash it. There's no point doing that. I'm not going to change my position. I believe based on the research I did and the research that was brought up by Kevin and by Tom previously and the decision we made, I believe that's what we're paid to do, is to take into that account. And that, again, an attorney's opinion is just that. It's an opinion interpretation. It's our job to weigh the big picture and make the decision. I therefore call the question, and we would like to see us understand that we did all this before, and this was to clean up the fact that we nominated him because we agreed to that. And this was to
You're
clean
calling the
that.
question already?
Yeah. You want to, well, you go ahead and talk first. Then
I had another
I'll
question.
withdraw that.
I had a comment real quick, Clint, that you had withdrawn your.
Yeah, I'll pull it back for now and we'll see.
Deputy Shock has withdrawn his name from consideration. I don't know if you were aware of that or not. He did that at the previous meeting. I am trying to wrap my head around everything and try to figure out, because it just seems we have such a limited set of candidates, so to speak. And I have angst based on your legal opinions as well as what I got from CTSI. And so and I voiced that last time, but I don't know what our options are. And that's why I asked how long Under Sheriff Hill could step in and take that role, if he could do it for a month, or if he could do it for only a couple weeks, or, there's no time frame addressed in that. And that was kind of a question I had for you, because I don't know. I'm struggling with what our options are here.
So
that was a question for Clint. You may speak in a minute.
Okay, well, and my answer is, yeah, there isn't a specific time frame. The statute is intended, and that's why it uses the word until. If there's a vacancy, and an unexpected vacancy because of the death or incapacity of the sheriff, the undersheriff can step in until the Board of County Commissioners can fulfill its constitutional obligation and statutory obligation to fill that vacancy by appointment. And that's where we're at today. The sheriff gave you substantial advance notice, so you had a chance to fill the vacancy, and May 20 is a reasonable date to do that. And I understand the dilemma you've got, because if Sergeant Shock and Rich Smith have both taken the position they don't want to do this, then you either start going down through the roster of other deputies in Sheriff Byerly's office who might be willing to do it, somebody who's not running for the office, or it's very hard in a small county like this to find somebody else. At this point, I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I feel I've given you my very best legal opinion. That's what you pay me for. I think it's more than an opinion. I am very, very sure of my legal interpretation, but I'm not trying to pull the rug out from under you here at this point in time. The only thing I wanted to say is that for the next period of time from now until January of next year, you might all be holding your breath in case anything comes up where there's a challenge made, whether we have a genuinely qualified sheriff serving in that position. And I'm sure Under Sheriff Hill would do a fantastic job of running the office. So I am not concerned about that at all. But if a good lawyer gets a hold of this and figures out, a way to, to say, well, my client was arrested and charged or whatever by somebody who didn't have the authority to do that, because we wouldn't really have any legal law enforcement officers on the job in Custer County. It wouldn't just be the undersheriff, because once he takes office, he is the sheriff, and then it's his job to appoint whatever deputies he wants, but they all have to be sworn in again. And so it could be a possibility where the Custer County Sheriff's Office doesn't have any legal law enforcement officers for a period of time. That's my concern. So you can take that for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bill?
thanks. I didn't mention this either. There are other precedences set just the opposite side. And I made those points before, that other counties had appointed the undersheriff who wasn't a resident but became a sheriff, and that is also true. So I firmly believe we are on strong grounds, and there's always a chance you're going to get sued by a lot of people. Always. That's the risk we run in all the decisions we make as a board of commissioners. And I feel comfortable continuing along the path of appointing our undersheriff as the sheriff. That's why the motion is presented. So I would like to move on.
Okay. In just a minute, we'll cut it short here. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not interested in cutting it short.
Yeah, well-
I would oppose a motion to call the question, because way too much at stake here for us to just plow through this without intelligent conversation and exchange. It's my opinion. Hey, Clint, a question for you. If we were to assign the undersheriff to serve as the sheriff until we appoint a sheriff, as I read the language, I'm assuming the undersheriff could run the sheriff's department until January the 10th.
Well, he could run the sheriff's office until there's an actual vacancy. As of now, the vacancy is going to occur on May 20. If somehow you could have convinced Sheriff Byerly to not step down, I suppose the undersheriff could run the office. But once his resignation takes effective, which you've already accepted it, then the office is vacant. So I don't have a good answer for you, except, as far as what Bill said, I know it's been done before, letting the undersheriff just step in and take over. But just because it's been done that way doesn't mean it's been done legally that way. It just means that they got away with it. And very likely Custer County will get away with this. We can just do this, and nobody is ever going to question the qualifications of Undersheriff Hill or Sheriff Hill, or the deputies that he appoints to work under him. That's the best answer I have. I don't have any other solution for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is just a comment, because this is a conversation between the three of us. Point. First of all, I pointed this out in the last meeting. The statute clearly says we don't assign anybody. The bottom line is the undersheriff is the acting sheriff or the sheriff in the absence of the sheriff. If he was shot, gone, or whatever, there's no appointment, and that remains in place until either an appointment is made or an election occurs. That's clear. It wasn't me saying, let's get away with this. It's a fact. And the fact is, as I pointed out, it's not trying to get away with other things. It's a risk that we always weigh on any decision. And in this case, because of the research that we did as a board and the discussion, this isn't a shortcut or anything. We spent a lot of time on this with a lot of people. And so I think it's good to clarify it. And I'm glad Clint, we had him to make the recommendations, but I'm glad it's on record publicly now But that was weighed in my decision to move forward.
So if I could ask both of you gentlemen then, which other attorneys have you reached out to? Not interested in any other individuals unless they were attorneys.
That's what I told you last week or month,
Yeah.
or whenever the meeting was. The attorney for El Paso County personally said Clint can call him anytime if you were call, pull up your.
Did that attorney give you an opinion?
Yeah, he said that we're on firm ground. That's how he interprets the Constitution and the statutes firmly. And he said, have Clint call me and he'll give him the rationale. I'm not going to re-argue.
Well, I don't think we're arguing.
I know, I'm just saying that that was done in my decision, Tom. I don't want to have to redefend that all over again. The point is, that's what they pay us to do, and you did yours, and I did mine, and I brought it up in the meetings. And also the attorney in Canyon City, I in fact called both the chairman of Canyon City Board of Commissioners to find out, because he was there during that time frame when he was working with Robert Hill. And the appointment had taken place, but that attorney down in Canyon had made that decision that that undersheriff could become the sheriff. Anyway, those were in fact what I'm basing my opinion, my decision that's best for the county to have that done in light of the election cycle that's going on, the fairness of that, and the likelihood of us being sued.
And Commissioner Day, attorneys you spoke to?
I spoke at CTSI, CCI, CTSI. I spoke with John Swartout, who reached out to the CTSI attorneys, and also a gentleman by the name of Andrew Ringel. The opinions that I got back from them is that the appointment has to mirror the qualifications for sheriff.
And is Rangel an attorney?
Yes.
As I,
It is my understanding that he is, yes, from Hall and Evans.
I'll mention it again because a lot of these folks weren't privy to our other conversations. The only attorneys I've spoken to were our county attorney and the assistant attorney general for intergovernmental affairs. I got to tell you, I don't care what anybody else says. If they're not an attorney, their opinions don't cut a lot of weight with me because it's if things go south, it will all be about legal. It won't be about public opinion. So that's why I asked specifically about the attorneys that you spoke to. And those were the only two I talked to, and the assistant attorney general told me that they couldn't give us any legal advice. So that was fairly disconcerting to me that the top governmental lawyer entity in the state's not willing to give us any legal advice. So I agree with Clint. I think that we do open ourselves up to the possibilities of things going south. If we don't legally appoint a replacement for the sheriff, I'm concerned about that. Because if we don't have a legal sheriff, as Clint pointed out, then there's a good chance nothing the sheriff's office could do may hold up in a court lawsuit. So,
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
In a second, I'll get to the floor here.
So I'll restate it. I believe we are making a legal decision. It is legal. It's a matter of interpretation by everybody in the world that reads those regulations. And that's our judgment call on whether it's that was a correct interpretation or not. I'm not saying that Clint's wrong. He could be. It's his interpretation, period. And that's the interpretations I got from the attorneys that I talked to. They can tell him the reasons why they made that decision, and I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Is it my understanding that we have two candidates running in the primary June 28th? We have two candidates.
That is correct.
Is it possible, Clint, can you hear me, Clint?
I can hear you.
Okay, so Deb Adams speaking. Is it possible that Hill can be the interim sheriff until the primary? Because isn't the primary basically then selecting who our next sheriff is? Because there's no one else running?
Not technically, we won't know that.
Because an unaffiliated could step in and run, or a write-in could still step in and run.
Okay, so it's not a given that whoever wins June 28th is the sheriff. Okay.
I'm sorry, James.
Yeah, I'll go back to just the whole situation of everything. The concern that Clint's expressing is that without a year's residency, if you appoint someone sheriff, then whatever they do is suspect and a lawsuit will happen. Bill feels that we're justified based upon just simple residency to appoint a sheriff. The law says in 505 fairly clearly that when the vacancy occurs, which is May 20th, then the undersheriff assumes the responsibilities of the office until such time as a new sheriff is appointed or elected. The election will occur ultimately, I don't know the date. The election occurs on the 8th of November, I think, in November. And at that point, then a sheriff is elected. And will take office once the new term starts. I don't understand the issue with accepting Robert Hill to operate as sheriff for that period of time, given that you can't appoint Schock because he's not going to accept. You can't appoint Smith because he's not going to accept. You haven't identified anyone else who you can appoint. So your recruitment process will take a month or two. Your qualification process for the sheriff in terms of training, etc., once you appoint them, will take a period of time. So the obvious solution to me, a layperson, is to avoid all this issue and simply accept Robert Hill in his role as undersheriff to run the office until that time. It doesn't, all the deputies were appointed by the prior sheriff. He doesn't have to reappoint anybody because there's no new sheriff coming in. And so I don't understand why this doesn't just avoid all the concerns that are being raised by all parties here discussing it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good, one quick one. Good point on that is, I did talk to the Colorado County Sheriff's Association for Colorado, and they pointed out, because, and I mentioned this in the last meeting, the significance of that office is one of the most, probably the most important office is the sheriff, and it's important to have the sheriff, not an undersheriff that's lagging on for 4 or 5 months. That was their push, was to get a person appointed, and they did concur that the interpretation that we've got is a valid one. That was their opinion. It just goes, it's a matter of what are you more liable to have a lawsuit against with an undersheriff running things for 4 months or whatever, or an appointed one that were same guy that we're appointing. So I don't know. That's a good point, Jim, and thank you.
Just to your point, from what Clint has said, we're legally exposed if we appoint one. And from what I said, we're not if we don't. And the Colorado Association of Sheriffs obviously thinks they're important. Therefore, a
Yeah.
sheriff is important,
Well, maybe.
but it's not, I don't hear any legal rationale for having to appoint
You-
a sheriff in the case of a 6-month time frame prior to an election when you can't appoint the recommended guy.
Well, the law says in the case of an emergency.
Right.
And to Clint's point, this is not an emergency. We had plenty of prior notice.
That's right.
But I would submit you're not going to get a sheriff appointed in time anyway.
Possibly.
So de facto, it's going to function
Don't do it.
the way I suggest.
If we're willing to, in my opinion, take the risk, we can appoint one today.
We have a nomination on the floor. That's who right now.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. But I
Yeah.
was assuming that you weren't going to
Right.
do that because he wasn't qualified.
Right,
So who would be qualified that you could have?
right. Hey,
I
Clint,
believe it's fault.
go ahead, Kelly.
Yes,
Hold on just a second. I spoke out of turn.
Kelly?
So I don't know if this will help you. The last day that a person can file to be a write-in candidate is July 21st. So after July 21st, nobody else
You know,
can get on the ballot,
that's good.
if that helps.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. May I, sir?
Yes, you may.
Hey, Clint, if we, I used the word assign because I didn't know a better word to use that. If we ask Under Sheriff Hill to run the sheriff's department, let's say until after the primary on June 28th, I would assume either of those candidates on the Republican side would maybe be willing to serve as a sheriff to accept an appointment after the primary. Do you see an issue with that? If Under Sheriff Hill ran the sheriff's department, I'll say ran instead of us assigning that to him. If he agrees to run the sheriff's department until after the primary, in my thinking, it wouldn't matter if somebody came in as an unaffiliated or a write-in later. I suppose the same argument could be made that we would be giving a candidate an unfair advantage, but I haven't bought into that all along anyway. So your thoughts about that?
well, the office becomes vacant on May 20. You are supposed to fill it as soon as possible. And you're talking about waiting another month. I don't think the statute about the undersheriff temporarily filling it until you can fill the vacancy, but I honestly, I don't have any other suggestions on it. If you do that with the understanding, I guess it would have to be a sort of a three-way understanding that Under Sheriff Hill would agree to step down, to resign at that point. And if the winner of the primary election is prepared to accept the appointment then rather than waiting until the general election, I mean, it would, I guess it could be done that way. I guess there's just one other thing I wanted to comment on, and this is a little bit off the point, but I know you've all went out and did your own legal research, and I've seen some of the results of that. I didn't see any of the attorneys that responded who did the deep dive that I did that came up with the Jackson case and the Real case and the language that I cited. So, but that's just an aside. If Shannon, I guess one thing you could do is see if Shannon would withdraw his resignation and make it effective as of the day of the primary instead. And I'm just thinking out loud here, then possibly it would be better for Under Sheriff Hill. I really don't have a solution. I mean, I don't have anything else to add to this. So if you want Under Sheriff Hill to take over on the 20th with an understanding that he will himself resign as soon as the results of the primary election are complete, and you can appoint that person then, it certainly doesn't leave as big a window of exposure as it would waiting all the way till January of next year.
Thank you.
Did you have something you wanted to bring?
Just something I think we might be missing here.
Yes.
The sheriff also makes the fire calls. So if we are going to have Under Sheriff Hill running the show, will he have that authority?
I think
If he's just gonna be serving not as sheriff, but as under sheriff, and I just asked you, will he have that authority?
Statute says he assumes all authorities of the sheriff as the under sheriff until appointment or an election.
Mr. Hill, are you with us?
Is he muted on our side?
Yeah, he's got the, it's *6.
It's *6, Robert.
If he wants.
If you want to speak, I was going to give you an opportunity to speak, sir.
I don't think he likes to.
Okay.
And he's not.
Okay, anything else?
You guys are comfortable with the exposure if we appoint Under Sheriff Hill as sheriff?
I am. And it allows us the minute that,
Okay, he's unmuted.
let me finish then. I am, Tom, and it also allows us to have him man the office fully by getting an undersheriff that after the primary that can help ride side saddle like we discussed, whoever wins that election. To be the undersheriff ready to continue on.
Mr. Hill, are you wanting to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I just listened to Clint when he was talking to us earlier, and he mentioned the Constitution, Article 10, specifically was, I think, his biggest hangup. The last thing he said was prior to his election, not his appointment. If he was reading that directly from the Constitution, I believe that's where we should go. I am not being elected. I am being appointed, or would be.
Yeah, I think that.
My concern is that if we do wait until primary, then whoever wins that primary comes in here, then what happens to me? Am I then fired by this new sheriff? No, I'm willing to stay here and postpone my future, serve out the rest of Shannon's term, and continue doing the things that he tried to establish for the county and that moving forward. So I appreciate all of your opinions, every one of them, because I'm just as confused as anybody else when you read this stuff.
Thank you.
And I know you guys are in a really hard position.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay. In answer to your question, Tom, I'd have to say a yes and no. I would agree that the chances of something happening are probably slim. That being said, I voiced this at our last meeting. The people that we pay to represent us and to give us legal representation are the ones that do not agree with this, and that's where my angst lies. So, any other discussion before we? All right, we have a motion on the floor to appoint Robert Hill as Custer County Sheriff to take place on May 20th at 12:01 PM.
May I request a roll call vote?
You may.
Thank you. So if Ms. Kelly would record her votes, appreciate that.
So the motion on the floor is to appoint Robert Hill as Custer County Sheriff, taking place on May 20th at 12:01 PM. Mr. Flower,
Aye.
Mr. Camden,
Affirm aye.
and Commissioner Day will vote nay. I would qualify that, Mr. Hill, by saying I do not discredit you at all. My angst lies in our legal opinions from our attorney and those representing the county.
I absolutely respect that. You know, you guys are in a hard position in trying to figure out what's right for the county, and you have so many opinions. Somebody made the comment last week that if that room was full of attorneys, you have that many different opinions. So I respect all three of your opinions, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Mr. Flower.
Thank you. I guess I would justify my vote, and I hope both of you gentlemen understand my concerns. I think that's why I wanted a roll call vote. If in fact we end up in litigation from some unfortunate circumstance through the sheriff's department, we are going to be held accountable. No question. I understand that. Do we open ourselves up for an inmate to come back on us to believe he was wrongly arrested or wrongly whatever? I think we do, but I don't see a lot of great alternatives. I don't mean this flippantly. Life's full of risks. I concur with Mr. Camden. I believe in his stance that he's willing to take the risk. That's what he indicated to me. I guess I am too. I don't like voting in opposition of legal counsel. I think that's going to strain our relationship with our attorney. I hope it doesn't. I was hoping he'd give us a golden solution today, but that's not his job either. That's our job. So,
Right.
It's a concern for me. Very close to vote no on this. If I thought we had a good other solution, I would have voted no, and I believe Under Sheriff Hill would have respected our vote as he indicated he respects yours. I think we all want to do what's right for this county. I don't buy into it because other counties did it, got away with it, never got hung on it. I'm fine. I can't go there, but I guess I'm willing to take the risk is what it boils down to.
Yeah, well, I'll make one last statement then because of that. I agree, and that's what we're paid to do. The county attorney, I know, understands that because he knows it's there for advice. If it wasn't that, if we had to do everything the county attorney said, he's running the county. He's an unelected official, or that is not in that sense as the county manager, and that's not what he's there for. So I respect his opinions. I expect, as I do all attorneys' opinions. So I appreciate that, Clint, and thank you for your advice, and thank you for understanding. And I think it was the right decision.
Well, for the record, you probably should announce the results of that vote, what we ended up deciding to do.
Yes, the results of the vote were 2 votes aye, 1 vote nay, passed by a 2-to-1 vote, with Commissioners Flower and Kanda voting aye and Commissioner Day voting nay.
To do what?
To appoint Robert Hill as Custer County Sheriff, taking place May 20th at 12:01 p.m.
And if I may, sir, before we move on, I've got one other item pertaining, that's relevant to this agenda item. I want to thank Shannon Byerly for being willing to come to me and say, just want to remind or inform you that the Board of County Commissioners or someone needs to make arrangements if you appoint a sheriff, that appointment needs to be sworn in. My jaw dropped. I thought, hell, I had no idea that appointment would need to be sworn in, but they do by law. I reached out to Judge Amanda Hunter. She has agreed, if we did appoint someone today, she has agreed to swear that person in tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock in the courtroom. So I would invite anybody that's interested in showing support for the new sheriff appointment. You're more than welcome to be at the courtroom tomorrow at 11.
Did you say at 11, not 12?
11 o'clock.
When he's legally can do it.
Yeah.
Flower?
Yes.
So have been told that the judge will do it at noon.
Oh.
Yes. So I believe it's going to be 12 o'clock, which is officially Sheriff Byerly's resignation time.
Yeah, good point. Judge Hunter and I did not have that conversation, and I did not think about that. That makes sense to me. So did you talk to Judge Hunter?
I didn't personally, but Sergeant Halpin did talk with her. She will be at the courthouse all day, so it was not an inconvenience for her to change to noon.
That's what she told me. So thank you for that input. I had not talked to her subsequent to our initial conversation. So we'll make that at noon tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'll reach out and confirm her with that, Robert. Thank you.
Okay. Thank everyone for your patience on that matter. Next item on our agenda is the consideration of accepting Custer County Public Information Officer resignation. I believe everyone here receives that.
Read it.
Wrong spot here. Let me pull it up here. You have a hard copy? This letter is dated May 17th, 2022. Says, "Dear Sirs, thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve as the Custer County Public Information Officer. What an incredible 15 months. It has become necessary for me to reevaluate my life's priorities. As such, I am writing today to resign my position effective June 1st, 2022. I will remain at your service in case of an emergency until you are able to fill my vacancy. Thank you for all that you do for our community. Yours is a difficult and underappreciated position. Very respectfully." And she has a very nice doctor signature, Reggie Foster. And
So with that, I regrettably move that we accept Reggie Foster's resignation as the Custer County Public Information Officer effective 1 June.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to accept the resignation of PIO Reggie Foster. Any discussion?
No, I'd like to thank her as part of the discussion. She's done a remarkable job, came in here during COVID, worst times that we've had to try to get information out to our citizens and to the state and to the local public health agencies that we worked with. So that was tough. She's also stood tall in a lot of other areas as well. So I appreciate her efforts, and I hope we can find somebody as equally good.
Yeah, I just appreciate her professionalism towards that position. Didn't get a lot of direction from us initially, and I think she did an exemplary job. I hope that she will be able to continue on with her responsibility with the Planning and Zoning Office or Planning Commission. I have not spoken to her about that, no idea, but certainly has been a valuable asset to us.
Yes, I spoke to her the other day after we got this, and I have appreciated her very much, not only with the working relationship, but also have become friends with her. So I regret that she needs to do this, but fully understand. Anything from the floor? I don't know if I need to call for floor or not on this, but
Or if they have an opinion.
anybody
It
has
was an
any?
emotion, it was a motion.
Yes.
So we do.
Not seeing anything there. Those in favor of accepting the resignation of our public information officer, Reggie Foster, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. I don't see her on, but if she is listening, we thank you very much, Reggie, for everything you've done. Next item, consideration of accepting planning and zoning director resignation. See the trend there.
This one I will not move to accept.
And we have that one also on our email. You have a hard copy as well. I'll read this one. This one is dated May 9th, 2022. Dear, headed by Jacqueline. How do you pronounce that? Jacqueline?
Back to wine.
I've never called you by that, so my apologies. Hobby. Dear Custer County Commissioners, I am writing to inform you of my decision to resign from the Custer County Planning and Zoning effective August 15th, 2022. I've greatly enjoyed working for the county for the past 15 years. Thank you for your understanding of my decision to leave the county and all the support over the years from the county commissioners and the community. Respectfully, Jacqueline Hobby. On that, I would make a motion to accept the resignation of Jackie Hobby from planning and zoning
I'll second. Regrettably.
and the other hats that she wears. Discussion.
We've got several vacancies, so guys start volunteering now. Lots of choices too.
So I would say personally, I've dealt with was probably not the right term. I have worked with you and
Nobody deals.
shortly as county commissioner, but for a long time in issues when I had to come in to see you or wanted to come in and see you to get my permits or whatever.
Come in to see you.
And I would like to say that you've done a tremendous job in that office for a long time in all your roles. And I would thank you very much as well, and I hope you do well moving forward.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah, I spoke to Jackie briefly today. I will say it here. I was surprised and saddened by this letter. Certainly will leave a hole in our county government. A lot of experience, Jackie has had a lot of personal relationships with people in our county that I think have benefited from her being in that office. I hate to see her go. Wish her all the well, Miss Jackie. I know you and I have had some issues here lately, but that does not undermine my friendship with you that's lasted over 20 years, so 25 years. So thank you for all your help. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is a hard one. Jackie and I are cousins, believe it or not. I think my dad was your godfather.
That doesn't make
Does that make us a cousin or is it a god sister? Anyway, I've known Jackie for many years and her dedication. What's most important, she cares about this county. And that is what has made her a big success, because she tried to make everybody successful and kept it in line with the growth and the values that she has and held for this county growing up here. So I appreciate it. I hope we can find somebody equally talented and equally committed. So thank you.
And it's sweet and kind.
Well, I didn't say that.
I would ask if maybe we could just feebly show our appreciation to her with a round of applause.
I agree.
think she did a good job.
No party?
As soon as this meeting is over.
We have a barbecue in her honor after the meeting. But no gold watch. But,
So, I will not leave until August. So that gives you plenty of time to advertise and let me train someone. So, my suggestion is that we discuss a couple options here.
We will, and just as soon as we get to that point, we have not voted to accept your resignation
Oh,
yet.
I thought
Let's unload you first.
I think I saw a hand here in the back.
I'll delay.
Oh, okay. You have something, sir.
Jackie, is there something that should be said as to the specific date that's on that resignation?
Well, we have a little confusion going on. Because I was actually hired in 2006 and I put 2007. Then I was actually hired August 21st and I put August 15th. But your new finance HR guy has straightened me out.
So did you need to change the
The
date?
dates will be a little tweaked when I get it all down.
So is your last date going to be the 21st then rather than the 15th?
Probably. August, right?
Doesn't hurt to put it down.
22nd will be a Monday.
So
We need to know that before.
we do before we vote, because your letter states the
I know,
15th.
so
We-
it's the 22nd will be
Okay.
Monday, but I also would direct any of the conversations about dates. My personal representative.
I've moved to amend the motion to strike August 15th and insert August 22nd.
I'll say.
Is that correct?
Okay, so amendment to the motion is to accept the resignation. I guess to strike the date of August 15th, 2022 and insert August 22nd, 2022. Those in favor of that amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, which now brings us back to the initial motion of accepting Jackie's resignation, now effective August 22nd, 2022. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. You are hereby officially on the calendar, the clock to
Thank you,
countdown.
unless the date changes, I gotta get out of here.
We won't change it again.
Okay.
So now you would be up because you're next on the agenda for discussion of a hiring proposal.
So actually, when I took this job, I was offered 3 positions, and that would be the planning and zoning director, planning and zoning code enforcement, and planning and zoning Custer County sanitarian. So I took all 3 of the positions over, and at that time, it seemed doable. And as things progress, everyone has to fill a role. And so the planning and zoning office has actually filled a lot of other roles as we do the airport leases, which is no big deal. But JD and I were speaking, and he feels that he could use another person half-time, and you've seen JD's letter. And that in the zoning office, there's 2 people are pretty good. 2.5 would probably be better, but not 3. And I'm speaking this from being in that office, and I'm also speaking it as sometimes, as a taxpayer, you don't want to see people in offices just sitting there. So 2.5 would be perfect, but either you hire a half-time position for this is my suggestion, county sanitarian and code enforcement, or you hire a full-time person to help JD upstairs input into the property tax. So Kristen does that. She has to draw the house out and she has to put it in the computer, and that's how you get your property taxes. So that would be a position that would be a full-time position. Now, many years ago, that position was that when JD first started, before he got to be assessor. So JD and I was talking about it, and JD said that at the time Dorothy Tomsick had the assessor's job, he would do half-time in the zoning office and half-time in the assessor's office. And then that position was available, so he wanted to do that. That would be like, I know that Kristen, I know JD could use, but that would be a part-time person up in JD's office, and then there would be the wages, and then they need a computer, but you can talk to JD about this. In my office, wouldn't need a computer. They would go out and do the septic inspections and the code enforcement. The only problem that I see with this scenario right now is that when my contractors, I'm taking possession on them, when the contractors, not mine, when the contractors call and they have a septic inspection, I try to get out there as soon as possible because I have an open hole that's dangerous. And it's money also for the contractor. And then I know that Friday it might snow, so you want to get out there. That's the only problem I see right now, that this could be an angst. So either we sit down in a workshop, I would suggest, and we do 2 scenarios. We do the scenario where you advertise my job as I have it, or you advertise the job as split. So I think we need to sit down and do pros and cons.
Question for Jackie. I never thought about this. So your septic inspection and related work would fall under the sanitarian? Never thought about that. I thought that was.
So that's basically the health department.
Okay.
Right.
But when Mr. Brown got to be health department, I actually am on, when he has his meetings, if I have something, remember, I can come in and state it. So the health department is basically that.
Who you report to is the health.
I
department,
will
as a
report to
sanitarian.
Mr. Brown when I feel like.
Yeah, I was trying to be kind.
For
when you don't see my whip.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you believe that your office, which we always call just planning and zoning office, needs a full-time assistant?
No.
Admin assistant,
Oh.
i.e. Kayla's job.
I got Kayla's I hope have filled it.
Okay, but you think that should be a full-time
Oh,
job?
definitely.
Okay, all right.
So Kayla's job needs to be full-time and the director needs to be full-time.
What is the title of Kayla's job? Is that admin assistant or
Let's
assistant?
ask my personal.
Oh, okay.
You're speaking into your head.
Zoning clerk.
Yeah, it's the planning and zoning clerk.
Okay, all right.
That was big.
So you believe that should be full-time?
Yes. And that is been offered in the paper. And hopefully I'll have it filled by next week. I have one applicant.
So the real big question is, should we hire another person, possibly part-time in the zoning office, part-time in the assessor?
So the job description for the part-time in your office is pretty easy, I guess, because you're gonna train them on how to
It
measure
would
out
be county sanitarian and code enforcement.
in code enforcement.
Code enforcement is just making sure that they, basically,
Build
that they, whatever they permitted on their home is
Built.
true. Uh-huh.
And then the assessor job, is JD got a description of what that should be?
Yeah, and so that would be JD's, where if you agreed to splitting it.
Right.
Then you would, so
And how would
basically
you
the
advertise?
planning and zoning office would have 2.5 people.
I got it. How would you advertise that position? List out both, you know,
Yeah, so that's why I would ask you guys when, to get this advertised as soon as possible, because, Kayla's job is gonna have to be trained for. The county sanitarian is gonna have to be trained for. Code enforcement's gonna have to be trained for, and director's gonna have to be trained for.
I believe, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That is until August 22nd.
Yeah, and I believe the sanitarian, there's actually a course that they have to take or something like that too.
They
and
read
pass
the
that.
septic regulations and they have to pass the test.
So Jackie, moving forward with the code enforcement officer, we've never really talked about this. Would one of their responsibilities to be to follow up on complaints about STRs?
Correct. And so you have 5 days by the zoning resolution, to follow up on complaints as a code enforcement.
Okay.
But also you have to remember what the complaint is and how to follow up on it.
But that whole responsibility then would, if we separate these out, would be code enforcement, not the director of planning and zoning.
Correct.
Okay.
and they would enforce the codes for septic systems, blah, blah, blah.
Correct.
When we say codes, we mean
Zoning resolution.
zoning resolutions, really what we're talking about. Okay.
And state requirements,
Pardon?
septic state requirements.
That would be the sanitarian.
Right.
So that's the angst there. It has worked well, dealing with everyone that I had to deal with all 3 of the jobs. I do believe that the growth in Custer County has come up where it makes it a little bit tougher
Cost
to-
effective.
Yeah, and I think that would work also. I just don't know how someone will jump back and forth. That's my whole totally angst about this whole situation. Because it sounds really good on paper and stuff, but you gotta be a very flexible type of individual to be able to jump from one job and then run upstairs and do another. Plus, I don't know how my contractors are already having a little difficulty with this choice I've made.
Yeah, I would think the way to get around that would be to say, wouldn't matter to me, but the code enforcement and sanitarian office hours are gonna be 8 to 12 or 12 to 4, whatever that is, so that they're not bailing out of JD's office and running doing the septic. People are just gonna have to get used to that.
I agree, and I think it would help out totally. I look like, thank God for Reggie, because it's a warm person sitting in that chair answering the phone. And they, if that's how come you need a Kayla or a Reggie, is you need someone, because they get disgusted if no one's answering the phone.
Right.
And they take the permits and stuff, but if something could be worked out that Mondays and Wednesdays is septic inspection day or something. And yeah, it might be hard to get used to, but they'll get used to it.
Or every morning or every afternoon. I was gonna ask you, in your opinion, if we had to make a decision of the code enforcement and sanitarian morning or afternoon, which do you think would be most productive for the contractors and other people? Mornings. I don't think it'd be a big deal with JD. We'd have to have a conversation with him about that, but they like to get their stuff done so they can get it covered and move on.
Exactly, and usually a lot of them do it on the weekends and they're ready to rock Monday morning. That's why I would appreciate if you would set up a workshop with JD and I as soon as possible, because the county commissioners are the ones that ultimately take the applications for this job and hold the interview.
For your job.
And the sanitarian and the code
Oh, yeah,
enforcement.
that's true.
So you're gonna have to decide what you want to advertise it as. If you want to advertise it as a split job or a split job and a whole job of 3 jobs, that's a decision that needs to be made. We're also gonna have to see what the job's worth and then who's gonna pay the salary, half JD, half, where Braden would be involved.
Okay, let me make a quick one then, based on that. It seems to me the right thing to do is to get advertisement out for you immediately on your job.
But we don't know what my job is
Well,
gonna
You
be.
do, because you just defined it as what you're splitting off. Right?
Well, she has, but we haven't made that decision.
No, I know, I'm just saying, but I'm saying, it's taking it a step at a time. We need to get a director in to be side saddle with you. We also need that director to be understanding how they're gonna split the office up potentially and have some input. That person has management skills too that we don't know yet, and abilities, and so. it'd
That's
be
right.
good.
That's why I would like to, I'd like to sit down maybe next week if possible with Braden and on JD and all of you
Sure.
to say, what's this gonna look like
Yeah.
on paper?
I think that would be before we advertise, so that we know
Yeah.
if we're splitting those off.
Because if I'm taking a job, I wanna know what it is.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to get all the players at a table and decide what we're gonna do before we start
See if
posting.
we agree to
stuff.
split it first of all.
Obviously, this additional proposed employee is an unfunded, unbudgeted expense for the rest of 2022.
That's why.
But Jackie's making an awful lot of money and she won't be here.
Exactly. Braden?
I'm assuming
I like my neighborhood.
Mr. Braden can
Work some magic.
give us some direction at a workshop about, one, can we afford to do that? Do we have any business hiring another full-time employee? And then, of course, have those conversations with JD and Jackie. I'd be willing to try to pick a day next week. I'm good with that. I don't think we want to wait very long.
I'm good after on the 26th and 27th only.
27th is your meeting for the short-term rentals.
So 26th looks good.
Well, I hope that doesn't last all day.
That's at 10 o'clock, correct? So it should be done
Should
by
be
noon.
afternoon.
About 1 o'clock on that Friday.
27th.
You're not available the 24th, Commissioner Campbell?
No, I'm in that mountain.
Oh.
Brady, are you available?
On the 26th.
27th, Friday,
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Yes.
That work for you?
That would be
And so,
I move we schedule a hiring workshop May 27th, 1 PM in the Commissioners Room.
second. Okay, any discussion on that? We have a motion on the floor to set up a BOCC workshop on the 27th of May at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock for planning and zoning recommendations for hire.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Second, it was already second.
Technically, we could advertise planning and zoning director's job subsequent to accepting her resignation, but I don't think it makes sense. I think we should wait.
No, because if you're gonna advertise a job, you better know what
Right.
you're advertising, and I don't wanna know what I'm.
You don't want to do a bait and switch on the poor person.
Not, it may not be relevant, Mr. Chairman, but I have a quick question for Miss Jackie. I may.
Okay,
Thank you. You posted. Oh, crap, I wrote it down. Zoning clerk, thank you. Yep, there it is. Planning and zoning clerk, you've already advertised for that. At what salary, if I could ask?
37,000, 36,000.
Who's running that office anyway? Is it?
Could you
It's her
please ask
personal
Mike?
assistant.
Yeah, let me ask. So 36,000 for the zoning clerk.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's what is starting.
Right, 17. Equates to 17 now.
Hmm.
okay. Anything else on this item?
Did we vote on that movie?
No, I guess we better.
I couldn't remember.
Okay, those in favor of setting up a BOCC workshop on May 27th at 1 o'clock PM. in
I
regards
just
to
called it a
planning.
hiring workshop.
That would work. Hiring workshop for planning and zoning. Signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Next item we have. Thank you guys for your patience. We do have a consideration of a request of zoning downgrade for the airport business park by Ray Pedro.
Thank you.
I got it.
Good.
About time.
You're welcome to come up, sir.
That's fine. I can stand right here. I talk pretty loud, actually. Sue's just too loud. I realize now why I never wanted to be a county commissioner. And I appreciate you three gentlemen for what you do take on and you do. And I know that it can be tough. Yeah, I used to say when you say those two words together, you remember it's a duty. Anyway, thank you very much. And I'm gonna miss Jackie. She's the one I have to lean on occasionally, and she's always Johnny on the spot. So
Thank you.
I'm gonna miss her. When I basically started doing the design work for the airport, the portion that I had of the airport work, I had 4 parcels of land as was all considered Civil West Estate. The 4th parcel is Civil West Estate, is also known as Civil West Business Park. And it's right outside the door here to your left. There's a pie-shaped piece of property that was divided into 6 5-acre tracts and was set aside basically for commercial use. And as we have found out, there's really been no demand or need for that to be used for commercial or any other purpose. Yes, remember the commercial uses are the way they are in your system. So we're needing to change the zoning on those, make them more usable for not only me, but the county as well. Not just because I think it's just sitting there, it's just dormant, 18 years or not sold one lot, well, we could sell one lot. Years. And I'm not sure I'm gonna be around another 18 years to collect the rent on the next one, so. Then we're asking that it just be taken back from commercial property to residential property. And it would the Silver West Business Park lots 1 through 5.
You have one for him or?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Silver West lots 1 through 5, are those from the storage units back west to this road?
Just the reverse of that. Just the reverse of that. Lot 1 is right out.
Yeah, okay.
Lot
But
6
there's
is
those
in the
5
very-
lots
That's correct.
along that Centennial Ranch Road?
It sits between County Road 310. Yeah, well, I got a map. Here's my-
If you wouldn't mind, I was pretty sure that's what
Sure, you
what
bet.
those lots were talking about, but I did not pull
I'll
up
have
the
my
plat
local
map and look.
assistant.
Oh, yes, there you go.
Everybody's got assistants.
Pedro, Vanna Pedro.
And those are currently zoned commercial only.
We had low impact uses were 8.5 to 1 impact uses. Given the views on those properties, of course, they really were specific cases of.
That's airway going up.
So lot 6 is, you did actually,
Lot 6 is the storage unit.
is the storage units,
That's
okay.
correct. Mike Carullo did that about 12 years ago.
So all of those lots are 5.07 acres,
Yes, sir, they're all 5 acre tracts. That is correct.
and it's in a 5 acre zone, I take it.
It is
This is a PUD.
a PUD.
Okay, so
Very
all that
nice.
goes off the
So
board.
this is an existing PUD that Ray and his pocketbook spent a lot of money on. And Ray got 6 commercial lots in this PUD, and you will see that he did the water og plan. The water's not any of our concern. That's a personal thing with Ray and his spouse. So the only thing that you're looking at, and I sent you the sheet, because when out of space storage came that was foreclosed on by the bank, then Mr. Good bought out of space storage. So Mr. Good comes in frequently and has emails a lot. And that's when I started looking at what back then they allowed Silver West Business Park to do. I sent you that list. And I think that just looking at the list, I think that we ought to be extremely happy that Mr. Pedro wants to change these back into residential lots, because what was allowed underneath the PUD, which you probably noticed I had some marks on it, and it was a laboratory where he didn't have to come before the county. That was called a low impact commercial business, where he would check water, soil, assay, agricultural, nutrient. And my favorite is medical testing for blood and urine cultures. And so that's a low impact business, by the way,
You're talking about the,
PUD. So
the
these,
whole PUD. okay.
so these 5 commercial lots are allowed to have these businesses that I have emailed you.
So I didn't see that even.
Pharmaceutical supplies, there's a couple pages.
There's everything but the kitchen sink there.
Everything.
Religious activities,
No retail.
studios, travel
Kitchen
agents.
No
sink.
retail,
Okay.
and so this is a
Seed
good thing.
repackaging,
This should,
ceramic shop.
this should be just like a winner. And I wrote an email stating that this is a good thing for the county to turn these back into residential. Ray also has an OG plan that he had to get before he could turn these into commercial lots. And that OG plan is water. That's none of our business.
Individual wells.
But let me tell you, Ray can water 50 single residents, 200 unit condominium. So this is the best thing that has happened since sliced bread.
How many of these lots Are there still left that can be done? 5?
There's 5 left. The only one that ever got taken.
And the PUD is for lot 1 through 6,
Okay, and then above
and that's
that,
it though.
That's it.
beyond that,
Commercial.
are there any more on the PUD that have the same commercial
No.
buildings? They're all gone now.
They all will.
They only were allowed 6.
I know.
Right.
Okay, that's why,
6
that's really
lots.
the question.
They're actually commercial wells.
Because I was wondering, the reason is because Bill Good keeps coming up with a big commercial deal that he's doing.
Not gonna happen
Okay, that's what I
unless,
wanted.
that's what Ray is trying to do, is turn these back
Okay,
into
so that's,
residential.
okay. So it's not a duplicative thing.
It makes more sense for them to.
Yes, sir.
Permission to be heard, Mr. Commissioner.
Yes.
Brian Anderson, Airport Board Chair. Mr. Pedro has come in and briefed the Airport Board. We support the good neighbor policy. We want to see him succeed in any reasonable endeavor next door to us. I would like to express a concern with residential properties. It should go without saying that any purchaser in the residential area is cognizant that there are 2 airports here, the private airport and the county's. My concern, and it happens in almost every community, is one of noise. And I would like to see some type of resolution be included with the sale of any residential property that the buyer acknowledges that they're buying and building next to not 1, but 2 airfields. And, you know, case in point, we had an aviator make a right base out here the other day, and by the time the engine was shut down, the homeowner was standing on the ramp here to discuss noise and why these airplanes are landing out here. So, you know, it's an age-old problem that an old airport is comes up next to a new home. But I would just like to be, the commissioners be cognizant of this, Pedro be cognizant, of any potential buyer understand and maybe sign off that they are buying and building next to 2 runways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I address that just briefly? real
You
quick?
might.
I too am a pilot. I own some property as well at Meadow Lake Airport. We have an aviation zone. There's not a buyer within 1.5 miles of that airport that does not know that there's an airport there. You would think people are stupid and can't see little planes going around all day long, but they can. And so that definitely is a great idea, Brian, and I am wholeheartedly in favor of that, that everybody should be notified that this is a airport. And little planes and big planes both make a little noise. And that should not be a gripe if they're notified of it.
If they buy into it.
And just an interrogative on that, if you will, maybe an opinion from Clint that says, this is a county letter that says you are building in the aviation zone of the county airport, and we want you to acknowledge that. You know, it probably won't stop any complaint, but at least you can go, hey, you were cognizant of this when you purchased.
May I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you may.
That sounds super duper, but we do not have a noise ordinance in Custer County. And also, this is a PUD, so it's a planned unit development that we, it's already planned as aviation and residential zone when they got a PUD back in 2004. And in the zoning resolution, we have a section just for this airport because we have to make sure that we maintain a certain height. So like when Daryl Winland was building, we had to make sure that he didn't build too tall and out here when they take off. So the only thing that I believe that could be done would, if Mr. Ray Pedro would, he's the one that owns these lots. And a lot of people want to buy these residential lots.
If you'd like to make a call,
Because they come with a hangar. That's the draw over there. They come with a hangar lot and they come with a residential lot, right, Ray?
That's correct.
So if you're buying your residential lot and your hangar lot, I would imagine that they would know that you're buying in an airport.
it's a good imagination, but I've seen it go sideways many times.
And I agree with that too, but that would, I believe, be up to Ray to put on his deed.
So is there a homeowners
Because we're not
association,
asking,
right?
Yes, sir.
So-
we're not asking for a letter from the commissioners. We're just telling you that we're taking this and we wanted it on public record. We're down zoning.
And to your point, if I may,
Yes.
sir, Mr. Ray, I don't mean any disrespect here. I just feel like, and I thought about this, that I need to say that this current administration is not real big on authorizing commercial property in the unincorporated parts of the county. You're asking us to do away with your commercial property and make it residential. Probably doesn't preclude at some point down the road, you or a subsequent owner of any of these lots to come back and ask to be zoned commercial.
We understand there would have to be an SUP. and
Correct.
I understand that
Yeah,
completely.
okay. All
But
right.
with the social atmosphere, the way it is right now, not just in Custer County, but in all over the United States, sometimes it's better to have less and ask for more than to have more and get nothing.
Because this isn't a PUD, couldn't you sell these as residential, commercial / residential? They could not build a home on these, the way it's zoned right now. They couldn't have a business and live upstairs.
They could have a safety officer or a nighttime,
Okay, but not a full-time resident.
not a full-time
Okay,
resident.
All right.
That's correct.
thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And thank you for your point, because it's well taken.
I would move we authorize the downzoning of, I probably won't get all this right, lot 1 through 5
Silver West.
in the Silver West
Business.
Business Park.
Yes, that would-
I'll second it.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to authorize the zoning downgrade for lots 1 through 5 at the Silver West Business Park. Further discussion.
According, if I heard what Jackie said correctly, there could be 55 homes on that 28.5 acres.
So they're all 5 acres, so
all five.
you
Right.
can't go below 5. So we're gonna only have one house on the 5 acres.
Okay. PUD, I thought you said would allow for 55 homes,
Condos
200 homes.
200
Where?
unit condominium.
on those.
I thought you said homes and then condos later.
And you have to realize I was gonna capitalize on the ski area and, I was gonna have a lot of
Big-
fun.
Big plan.
Big plan,
Yeah.
big plan.
So-
But we had to plan big. In other words, when I was told to go out and buy 5 acre-feet of water in order to put all these condos in place, and commercial wells and blah, 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 that's what I did. Matter of fact, I worked with Commissioner Dave's mom, on some of this, quite a bit of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so we had to buy enough to cover all that. Then as it downsized, ski area failed, we decided we can't build, 100 condos along the runway. That would have been more problems. That would have been- But that's what happened, and that's.
So I'm just trying to look down the road and say at the very max, what could ever happen to these 5 lots if we vote to downsize them?
So in the paperwork that I gave you is the water decree.
Right.
And that's what he went and got an AUG plan. And the first, as decreed in case number 85C111, 50 single-family homes, 200 condominium units, 1.58 acres of irrigation, 20 commercial buildings, and I thought we had 75 horses. Yeah,
Which was to go where? In Silver West
Business Park.
Business Park, which is,
Of the fourth, I think that was all.
Okay. Not just these 5
Not
lots.
just, no, sir, that was all of the 5. 1 through 4.
So this is the best thing that's happened since,
So we could end up with 5 single-family homes, max,
max.
and they are currently on, you have commercial well.
It won't be.
They
So-
won't be. But
It
they
won't
say the
be.
commercial wells were.
There's water there.
Okay. So because of PUD, there could be 5 wells,
There's
One
gonna
on
be
each.
5 wells, but they're not gonna be commercial wells anymore.
Right.
They're gonna be in-house
residential,
only.
in-house only. Well, does his water hog plan change that or not?
His water hog plan is a separate situation.
Doesn't account for this. You have to get another augmentation plan.
He's pulling it, but he still has a water hog plan that's personally his.
Right.
Oh, it define, it says right there what you can do.
Yeah.
Right? So,
So potential buyers would be, we would think, we don't deal with it, but they should be eligible to apply for and get a well permit for each one of those 5,
They will.
in-house only.
Uh-huh.
Then those landowners would have to get an aug plan if they wanted to do an exempt, non-exempt well. Right.
correct.
And that's your plan, is to try to market these and,
You bet, you bet. As a matter of fact, this last rush of properties that we had last year and this year already, we're sold out in the Southwest states.
Wow.
There's 3 or 4 houses for resale or lots for resale, but we as a developer are sold.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else?
I just want to pull on this just a little bit more. 5 single-family homes potential, and then would you please readdress how many potential residents in a condominium style?
No, it's gone.
It's gone.
That
It would be gone if we vote on this.
So it's only the 5.
Just 5 houses.
You got those sold already?
We've got 2 of them that are being looked at real hard right now.
I just would like to see us cooperate on the
Sure.
noise, and highlight that.
Absolutely.
because-
And we don't have a fly zone.
Yes.
Like
Yeah, you do.
in
We
the
do.
planning and zoning, right? So that, I'm sure covers anything that close to the airport.
We'd have to look at the exact mileage of it, but it's real close.
Yes. Okay,
But it has nothing to do with noise, which is Brian's point.
No,
It
and
has to
then.
do with height restrictions
Safety.
and safety zone. It's a
It's a
safety
safety
zone.
zone of taking, taxing on
Right,
and off.
and so that would be an issue that Brian needs to continue to push on, to make sure people realize they're buying in an air park and there's noise. And that's a deal between you guys.
well,
And we have a good working relationship. I just want to point this
Yeah,
out because,
make
you know,
sure.
5 years, 10 years,
Right.
15 years, maybe the growth over there will outpace the airport or vice versa, and we just need to be cognizant of that.
Maybe we should put a sign up.
This is an airport.
well, that's why I asked about the fly zone. I mean, I'm sure that all that's gonna be on not on the deed, but certainly disclosed at the time of sale that there's a fly zone here. It's gonna,
Yeah.
could restrict your height or whatever, so clearly it's not gonna be a surprise, but I keep thinking 10, 15 years down the road, are they gonna start squalling about?
And that's how
No.
come if you look at the zoning, there's a whole section on the airport and you have the, what is it, the cognitive fly zone, and then you keep expanding out. And it's all has to do with runway takeoff and stuff. They don't want
Safety.
Brian to be stuck in someone's house.
It looks like.
Or it's landing gear.
Anything else? Okay, then. Those in favor,
Well, maybe we just did public comment.
Seems like we did.
we were pretty much running with that, yes. Those in favor of approving the down zoning of lots 1 through 5 in the Silver West Airport Business Park, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Pedro. I had to throw it back out because Jackie kept saying Pedro too.
We've all called him Pedro.
It's all good. Thank you very much, Commissioners. I appreciate your help.
Thank you, guys.
5 minutes.
Okay, we will take a short break. Return in approximately 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't know you remember most of the actually public record, but Mr. Hill is currently the under sheriff at this time. He's taking on a huge responsibility. It seemed like he mentioned something on the phone that, well, is his current job going to be available to him if he wants to go back to it at some time?
He was going to retire when Shannon. When Shannon left office in January. His plan is to stay through.
She got napkins out.
If we don't, if he's just the undersheriff and a new sheriff is appointed, it's not accepted, and his whole life's plan that he's laid out is jacked.
So that position will be appointed by the new sheriff.
Yes, and that's correct. And the hope is, and he's agreed to it, is that whoever wins the sheriff-elect becomes his undersheriff at that time. Then he would sit, understand the budget, do things with him until they take home, which is a leg up.
He's not going to be hung out to dry.
No, he's hung, that's why he made it clear, he wants to be here through January 10th.
Allen Avenue.
Kevin Day.
That's his home right there.
Is it right across from us, huh? With the big front door?
Big front, he has big doors.
It's called a BFD.
Big front door.
I understand that acronym.
Hey, Jordan.
Excuse me, sir, can you?
Maybe we'll make some.
Okay. This is Kevin Day, Chair of the Custer County Board of Commissioners, and I will reconvene this meeting of the Board of County Commissioners on Thursday, May 19th, 2022. The time is now 11:52. Next item on our agenda is consideration of distributing the recycling ARPA grant funds.
If I may, sir.
You may, sir.
Thank you. Put this on the agenda, been involved with High Country Recycles Group, a committee that has been meeting to go through the grant that we authorized through CDPHE. And the committee recommended, and we voted to approve their recommendation for C7 High Country Recycles. Their grant application was for $20,000. We approved that. I'm here today to ask the commissioners to consider. They expended $15,000 of that, or will. I shouldn't say they've expended it. They hired a company to come in and insulate the new Custer County Recycles building. That work is done. I've got the invoice. It is for exactly $15,000. That committee wanted me to ask the commissioners if they could use the remaining $5,000 to pay towards the electrical service bill to get electricity to that building through Sangre de Cristo Electric. That bill was for $10,300 and some dollars. So they wanted to know if they could use the other $5,000 off of this 20 and use that to pay Sangre de Cristo.
So the original request was not including the electric. They had a plan.
That's correct. Well, now,
Plan before.
the original request to ARPA,
No, to.
their
They
grant,
their grant request, they requested support for the grant. And the grant never included connecting.
the original grant, the RREO grant
Yeah,
did not
That's right.
include
And
electricity.
what was their plan, given that was the case for electric? Did they have a backup, or were they gonna come back? to
I'll
us
be
or
honest with you,
something?
they completely overlooked it.
Yeah, that's what I
So-
thought it sounds like.
They didn't know, well, I can tell you what, it wasn't by design, their plan wasn't by design, but they said, we're gonna have to ask the commissioners to pay for this, the county.
And we already approved it. They're not asking for any additional money.
No, they just
So
want to
they
be able to
wanted
use
continue.
5,000 of that 20
That's what,
to go towards the
okay,
electricity.
that makes sense.
The grant was to insulate the building. They thought it was 20 grand. He redid the bid. It
15.
ended up being
Okay.
50.
And,
And we owe, the county owes Sangre de Cristo Electric
right, we would have to do it,
$10,300.
and we were banking on that anyway.
Yeah, and I think then the other hope is to come back eventually and ask you the same thing for C2 through Sustainable Ways. We approved 20,000 for them for an office building and restroom. Their hope is to get that done for about 15,000 and use the other 5,000 to finish paying off the electrical. So I was up there day before yesterday, right when they were finishing up the install on that 3-phase. And literally energized that building while I was still there. So we have electricity in the building.
They
And
didn't
that
make
was,
you touch the building while they did it?
No, they actually said you might want to stand over there.
so they did that for 10 grand, right? That's the bill to the REA, or to the Sangre de
The
Cristo.
electric?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So this
10,300.
saves us $5,000.
Hold on just a second. It is $10,362.74. So if we agree to do, I think what they're going to end up asking us to do, and that is to roll over 5,000 out of this, 5,000 out of the other, then the ARPA ends up paying for that electrical, not the county.
Right.
Personally, I think it's a good idea.
It serves everybody.
Yeah, they've got, we earmarked the money, which I look back yonder there because we never really fleshed this out or we haven't yet to the point to say, okay, we've given you 20,000, you tell us exactly what you're going to do with it. We just haven't gotten there with them. That was the plan. I think it still is, but we've got this invoice from Sangre de Cristo. So
gotta pay it.
At least we could shoot them $5,000, yeah.
Well, didn't we earmark 10,000 for the electric anyway?
No.
From county money, we had to,
No.
or we wouldn't have approved it.
No, everybody had just got under,
Oh. So
got,
Brain doesn't
Just
have
got
any money
overlooked.
somewhere
No.
for 10,000 bucks,
not from that grant and not
I know
from
from the-
ARPA.
or not from the county thinking, we
No.
gotta have power to
Right.
this thing to put in.
Now, the other thing is we have some wiggle room, wiggle dollars as chairman of the ARPA thing. I guess we could consider using 5,000 out of C2 or C7 and using 5,000 out of that wiggle room and just pay the whole
I think
10,300
we should pay the whole 10,000, get it out of our hair.
and pay it out of ARPA.
That'd be my recommendation.
I would agree. I didn't want to lean on you guys, but it would make sense. I mean, we obviously owe it to them. We owe it to Sangre.
Yeah.
I did talk to Sangre and they said, well, and it was a little bit of an awkward conversation because the CEO said, well, how much could the county afford to pay? Well, good God, if we got to get down to haggling over $5,000. Yeah. I said, well, it's,
Plus a charity
Yeah.
cookie.
I said, it is the county, but it's being handled through a grant. And I said, I think the grant could handle 5,000. And he said, well, then we could work with you on the other 5,000. Well, we're really not legally,
We can't have it
we
done.
can't have a loan, which is what he called it. So I'd like, if we can, I'd like to just see us pay it out of the ARPA money and knowing that 5,000 for sure is coming out here.
So could we take it in
C7.
2 steps then? We can still pay it out of county general fund and reimburse the general fund after we identify. the sources.
No,
Or
we
can-
pay it straight out of ARPA.
Well, we can. I'm just saying
Not
there's 2
out of-
ways you could approach it.
Well, ARPA's in the general fund, but
What's the cleanest? I mean, if we still want to, we can make a decision today, probably with enough information,
Right.
unless you want to go wrangle with the ARPA guy.
no, I don't think they're part of this conversation.
I think I'd like to hear from Jackie's assistant.
Thank you. He's still on the job, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't know where my boss went. So I guess I might need a little filling in as far as the ARPA monies go. Because the last I knew we were expending all of that.
We're not.
So that was my assumption in this conversation. In that case, if there's not a initiative to go back to a committee to figure out the rest of this funds, it would more or less go back to the way we did it before the committee was formed.
Right.
And then it would just come out of ARPA expense.
We already committed to that number anyway in the grant. We approved that already, so all we're doing is, we're not changing the approval of the 20, whatever it was. It's embedded in that already.
Well,
It's a repurpose.
Yeah, what we're talking about doing is funding 5,000 out of C7
C7.
is a $20,000 grant to
That's the
High
name
Country
of the-
Recycles,
That would have
and then
been-
take the other 5,000 out of the ARPA money.
Which
That's-
C7 was the line item of the ARPA request that we approved for 20,000. They did come in at 15,000 is what it cost them now to do what they requested, and are wanting to use that additional 5,000 towards the electrical. Did I get that right?
Yes,
Yep.
and I've got that receipt as well, or maybe I gave that to Dorothy, I can't remember, but they know out of that $20,000 grant, they've committed 15,000 of it to the insulator.
Okay,
So you're already booking 20,000. It's not going to change that.
Right.
sure, it doesn't change that. The only thing would be that process and, based on what I thought that process was gonna look like, we pay 5,000 or 20,000 rather to them.
And then they account to us how they spend it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then what are we, if they're paying part of that, we're paying part of that, or
Yeah.
what that means.
So they asked if we would allow them to use 5,000 of their 20 to do something other than insulate the building. That's their ask.
They're still accountable for 20,000.
Yeah, the money's there. We approved it. They just want to use it for something besides insulating the building. And then we just discussed taking another 5,000 out of ARPA and paying Sangre de Cristo's invoice of 10,362. So. Yeah, they were
But
just,
It's not spent.
yeah, they were just looking for permission to spend that money on something besides insulating the building.
I think Joni was hoping to be able to come out of today's meeting knowing whether she could pay those
Right.
individuals.
Yeah, and that's, should be, I guess, part of this conversation as well. Because they would like to get that insulator paid. We haven't gone through the process that we talked about, but as Dorothy and I spoke day before yesterday, these ARPA applications that say we need $5,000 to purchase radios for Round Mountain Water, for example. I would assume our letter would say, just send us a copy of your receipt that shows us that you did buy the radios. I don't know, there's no reason to get a 1-year follow-up or a 6-month follow-up on that. I mean, those things that are pretty specific about what they wanted the money to buy, just show us, prove to us that you bought them. It'd
And
be
if
the
there's
same
stuff
with this.
left over, then that would be stuff we could pool back together and grant out above it later.
Yeah,
But they can't overspend that.
Right. yeah, and I think all of our letters will say any unused dollars need to be returned to the county.
Repurpose it for another use.
Is everyone aware of the fact that the Cs will not be paid out yet until? we
Yes,
receive the
that's
check?
why they came to me and said, can you
Okay.
take this to commissioners and see if we can get a exemption so that they can get this moving forward?
So they, not only do they want to change part of the spending, but they also would like to be able to receive those monies now.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, in all actuality, there's no reason why they couldn't wait because the power's in.
Yeah, but we've got, I don't know what the net on this bill is.
It's 5,000, whatever.
No, I mean, the
Electric.
net 30 or whatever it is.
Shoot, used to get complaints from people saying the check's not cashing. They wait another while to get it as quick as we can.
So that's why, one of the reasons why I brought it to you was that they're asking for us to fund that now so that they can pay that.
And given it being in the C section, if that would make sense and be cleaner for you all to approve that now, because it's not
changing.
totally approved as far as the actual disbursement of that money.
Right.
For that to happen now, and then it would just come out.
Yeah, we just want to see their
Right.
invoices.
Yeah.
Good.
So-
I move that we allow the payment to the Sangre de Cristo Electric Association of their requested 10,000, or the use of the money that the grant has already been granted to be used toward that payment of the Sangre de Cristo.
Second,
So your motion
I'm
is
gonna ask
to,
for clarification on the motion.
Yeah,
but I'll second
we're gonna
it.
clarify it.
and I'm gonna do that right now. What I heard was you moved to allow Custer County
C7.
Recycles
High country.
or High Country
Recycles.
Recycles to use the remaining $5,000 of their ARPA grant to go towards the electrical installation due to Sangre de Cristo.
To build up.
That's exactly what I was seconding.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly what I said.
And so your motion was for the $5,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Toward that 10,000.
Any discussion on that?
Anybody dares?
Anything on the floor? Okay, those in favor of allowing High Country Recycles to use the remaining $5,000 of their ARPA money to go towards electrical installation, signify by saying aye.
Aye. And I would move that we authorize Braden to take the balance of that, which would be $5,362.74 out of our general fund ARPA dollars and combine that and just pay that invoice.
I'll second the motion to pay the electric bill in full with the remaining dollars coming from The ARPA funds that are already in the treasury.
Second.
Okay. So I have a motion on the floor to take additional funds from the general fund ARPA monies to pay off the remainder of the electrical installation bill in the sum of $5,362.74. Discussion.
I'm gonna send you this right now, so I don't forget.
And copy Dorothy on it.
Yes.
She'll submit the invoice.
Pardon?
She'll submit the invoice.
Oh, okay, I'll send it to her.
Was there? Sorry.
We're on discussion. Please, sir.
Was there any urgency to this, or is it okay for the end of the month?
No, they just finished the work day before yesterday, so
You can do it
we
by
can
the
run
end of
it
the
through the APs fine.
No hurry, as long as it's done soon.
And I'll check for the extra pickup.
No hurry, they get it done.
Any other discussion? Those in favor of the motion to take additional general fund ARPA dollars to pay off the remaining balance on the invoice for the electrical installation, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay,
Do you want a copy of it as well, or just shoot it to her?
Kevin,
yes, ma'am.
I would just like to let you know that the polis visit will not happen on Monday. They have not yet finalized Friday yet, they're waiting further info. So that's what's happening with that.
That's
So-
good. We can be there.
Yeah, just so you know, it's
I
not
didn't-
happening on Monday,
Oh,
and I will keep you posted on the details on Friday,
uh,
which I think you have a full day on Friday.
Friday the 20th.
Friday, the 27th.
It's coming Friday, or a week.
Well,
Week
so
from
it just
tomorrow.
says won't happen on Monday. They have not yet finalized Friday yet, awaiting further info. So that's where that stands.
Okay.
I think you have our emails, if you could send us an email.
You know I do.
And we can adjust the workshop.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Next item, consideration of the South Region Emergency Management Mutual Aid Agreement. And Adrian has sent that to us. We do have it in our packet.
I was gonna move to adjourn, so we can get out of here. Go eat a hamburger. What happened to that?
And this is an agreement between Custer, Fremont, Huerfano, Los Animas, and the Pueblo County Sheriff. I believe everybody's had a chance to look through that.
I move that we, see how we want to word this, so we don't have to do it 20 times.
10,362.74.
That we accept and sign the South Region Emergency Management Mutual Aid Agreement between, I can name the counties. Custer, Fremont, Orfano, Los Angeles. And Pueblo County.
Pueblo County Sheriff.
Sheriff.
I would-
Second, go ahead.
I'll second that motion. Discussion, gentlemen.
Yes, sir. Just a second here. Mr. Adrian,
Yes, sir.
I read in that agreement, I read the entire agreement again, but I did read in there that we have the right to view the other party's annual operating plans. So my question is this: do you have those, or should we request a copy of their plans?
You could request a copy or go to their county web pages where the plan should be posted.
It should be, but I'm just thinking, should we reach out to those counties and say, we need a copy of your plans in our file? Because they're not gonna say the same thing ours does.
No, they'll be totally different.
So if we commit to mutual aid, their mutual aid may have a little different slant on it than ours. Probably not a big deal, but I think it'd be wise to get a copy of their plans in your files.
Because
Just
that thought crossed my mind. I was going to ask you, Adrian, if they've already seen this, has everybody reviewed this?
Everybody has.
And there's been an input,
Yes.
which means their mutual aid or their AOP ought to account for their activity in this anyway. It should not be a
That's
surprise.
correct.
Okay, it's a good idea to have it on file. So they've got it.
And then I could have missed it, but I'm trying to pull it back up here. I didn't see the length of this mutual aid agreement, and I just, like I say, I could have missed it, so.
What do you mean?
How long this agreement's in effect
Or
for?
when is it effective?
It's effective June 1, right?
I think it's a living document
Okay.
and you can cancel all of it at any time.
Did Clint review this?
Is he on? He was sent a copy.
Hey, Clint. Let me look, he may got off.
I'm here.
Did you happen to review the copy of the Office of Emergency Management's mutual aid agreement?
No, I didn't.
See, are we allowed, in other words, to bail at any time, or can they bail out?
If the parties agree, it can be terminated, yeah.
Yeah, I think anything can be modified. We can pass this and modify it later if there's a technical issue on a time, date, or whatever.
I'm seeing that any
It's-
party may terminate upon 90 days written notice.
Right.
It's pretty standard stuff. It was just, those were the two things that I wasn't sure of. So,
The 3-year review.
I like it.
that's all I had, so.
Anything else?
Good, I got it.
Any other comments? Would you like to speak any more on this or no?
No, sir.
And it looks like the chair and the clerk sign it.
Yes.
Do you have hard copy today?
I,
Sign
I
that.
have 2 hard copies.
I
okay,
got a hard
Do you
copy.
have the dates filled in on your hard copies or no?
We can write them in. That's what we've been doing.
I have 2.
okay, so I will get a copy signed today.
Here's a.
I'll speak to something else after this vote as well. Those in favor then of the approving the South Region Emergency Management Mutual Aid Agreement between Custer, Fremont, Huerfano, Los Animas counties and Pueblo County Sheriff. Signify by saying aye.
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 Both of them signed?
Yes, please.
Okay, that motion carried. Also, in regards to our first item on the appointment of Under Sheriff Hill to, we do have a resolution in our docket
Oh,
pertaining
yeah.
to that.
good point.
Yeah, we need to-
I think we might want to look at that so that I may sign that to make sure that that is.
Can I speak to that, sir, while you're,
Yes, you may.
since I wrote this? So the fourth whereas, let me make sure I'm right. No, sorry. The third whereas, Section 10, Article 14 of the Constitution says that no person shall be eligible in the county office unless he or she shall be a qualified elector, nor unless he shall reside in the county at the time of his appointment. It goes back to the discussion we had earlier, really. I double checked that. It does say that.
Does it say or?
No, there's no or,
I heard you say.
nor unless he shall reside in the county at the time of his appointment.
I thought it said shall reside in the county for 1 year. That's what I was questioning when I sent that email.
Yes.
That's not true. That the requirement was he has a residency period.
Hey, Clint.
I know, but he's
I know, we're
quoting the
trying to fix that.
Yeah.
Constitution, and that's not what the
Right,
Constitution
that's
correct.
exactly right.
says.
When I change that whereas, I was thinking of the Colorado revised statutes. So to that regard, the third whereas, I would propose that it would say CRS 30-10-501.5. But that is not what it says in here. This isn't.
This is
technically-
probably
it's
not the,
correct.
this is not the last one that you sent, probably.
It is.
Is it? Okay.
Mhm. So I would say that should say CRS 30-10-305. I think Clint had said 301, and that's,
It's 305.
it's 305, yeah. So, and I made that correction here, if you guys are good with that or not, it's up to you.
Could you read that?
It's just the
complete
third-
section, the third whereas.
Yeah, so it would read, whereas CRS 30-10-305.5 of the, sorry, says that no person shall be eligible to any county office unless he or she shall be a qualified elector, nor unless he shall reside in the county at the time of his appointment. It does say that in that 305.
Right.
And I can show you that if you want to look at it.
Food on the grill.
It's not gonna be rare if we don't get out of here.
Okay, so
I'm gonna get it going.
So I would move that we adopt resolution 2219, appointing under Sheriff Robert Hill of the Custer County Sheriff's Office to fulfill the remainder of the term of Sheriff Shannon Byerly. And now my phone's,
Second that.
somebody's gonna raise hell about it.
I have a motion on the floor to adopt resolution number 22-19. To appoint Under Sheriff Hill as the sheriff
For the remainder of the term of Shannon
for
Byerly.
the remainder of the term for Shannon Byerly. Discussion.
Thanks for bringing that up. I forgot about the resolution.
Yeah, I thought about it when we were talking about it, and we talked about it for too long. Lost track of where it was.
Okay, any other discussion on that?
I don't think it needs to say anything about swearing in this resolution, does it?
So,
Nope, I'm good.
okay, anything from the floor?
We do not have a hard copy of this.
Sir,
On this subject or just?
on this subject.
Me?
All righty.
Back on here.
Those in favor then, the motion to adopt resolution 22-19 signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. I'll get a copy of that today and get that signed.
I'm sending it to Kelly and Dorothy as we speak.
And that will require all three signatures on it before everyone is gone today. Correct.
No,
Hard to do without getting it printed.
The one that I had here had signature lines for all three.
it does, but we're not gonna be able to sign it. Well, we could go back to the office, I guess.
We can sign it.
We can't sign it
approve We
here.
can sign it wherever.
Yeah, then that was my
If
intent.
we
was-
print it out here, probably.
Okay,
Print it here.
one way or another, I guess. If we could all get that signed.
Why don't we
before tomorrow.
sign the, what do we sign? Well, you might, as well, we can sign the six. We got a signature.
No, it's all on one page and we made a change.
Oh,
to
and I
it,
thought-
so we'll just
Oh,
sign
it's
it in
on
the
one
office.
page, yeah.
Okay,
We can just sign it in the office.
okay. Next item then on our agenda is a request for emergency funding for OEM.
Yes, in my staff meeting back in on the 4th of May, I came to you with a concern that we did not have an emergency fund set aside, to pay for expenses when we incur disaster costs in our response. and I asked for a sum of $20,000. You instructed me to go talk to Braden to see where that money might come from, and I didn't gain any traction in those meetings. And so I'm coming to you for a solution and some recommendations.
And, okay, so you have you have any other recommendations?
We don't have a county funding source that is available. There is money available, $210,000, and I believe the Arpa fund.
Yeah, I was gonna propose that actually, because it's a good use of the ARPA money. It's for all persons. How many dollars is it?
There's about 210,000.
How many dollars is your request?
210,000.
No.
20 to 25,000.
Okay, and so when I saw the agenda item, I did talk to Andrew Zeller, but he would have to go back and make a recommendation back to us, I think. Or we can decide to use 20,000 of the pot like we did a few minutes ago. Is there any urgency to this?
There is very urgent.
No. Yeah.
A lot of urgency.
Can you wait till the end of the month when we redo these?
I would prefer not to wait till the end of the month, but I can.
Anyway, I would propose we take it out of the ARPA and discuss it.
You did visit with Brady, you said, as far as
Yes.
Looking
we did
for-
Look for monies.
And from what I'm hearing is you did not locate any spot that we could do anything like that, correct?
The emergency services, the emergency management fund, which includes both Adrian's department and the dispatch for E911, has a fund balance of 60-some thousand dollars. And that's starting to get into an area that, without me having talked to Sam and have a better handle on some of these limits and percentages that we're supposed to be holding back, that I think we would be broaching, so I wouldn't exactly feel comfortable right now doing that. And
Is there?
Thank you, sir. Adrian and I've talked about this some. I probably won't support taking this out of the ARPA money, and I will tell you right now why. We had some wiggle dollars left in there. I think it was, according to Andrew Zeller, around $10,000. That's why I did support to take that extra 5,000 out of ARPA. The other 200,000 is earmarked right now for workforce housing. I requested that the commissioners hold on to those dollars so that we can move forward with the affordable housing thing, which is what those dollars originally were requested for. We just didn't authorize that. So I would encourage the commissioners not to start nickel and diming that 200,000, because before we know it, it won't be enough money to make a difference. So that's my justification of not being in favor of using ARPA money. But I think I have an alternative.
Okay, before you do that, I hear you. And that was why I couched it with, that's why I called Andrew up. It said that is a good idea and it should be considered. And that would allow him time to go back to the board, talk to us, and see what money is required, on the housing side, how to reallocate it if they can, if there's some other way. I wouldn't propose to go and say, let's pass it and make it happen today.
Yeah. And
I would propose that.
And to your point, I guess I was of the general mindset that committee was done. But that's a sidebar thought. But my possible solution is, if I understand things right, that we got a reimbursement from the state of $37,000 reimbursement from your EMPG grant, correct?
$38,000.
And that went into general fund.
I'm not certain where it went.
That's a question more than a statement, sorry. It did not go back into OEM's line item in their budget, right?
I do not see it there.
so Adrian came in this week and we started going over some of this, trying to figure out what was going on. There were 2 deposits that were made, of the 3 that Adrian has record from the state saying they're supposed to have received. 2 of them that have gone into the general fund.
Right.
That being said, so all 3 of those should have gone into the emergency management fund. But we also did, well, that's not totally true now, but I'm thinking through that. I'm not sure we budgeted for that revenue
We did not.
in that.
No.
So
It
we
was-
would have some money there
Right.
that was not.
And that's my point.
I held it back.
We expected that revenue, but we never budgeted for that revenue.
That's right.
It got by us. So my proposal would be that, well, what the heck, might as well dive in. I would move that we earmark $10,000 of the OE or the EMPG reimbursement money for Adrian's request. And the reason I say 10 instead of 25 or 30, because this is unbudgeted stuff. And I think, I would hope we could run the risk of getting by the rest of the year with 10,000.
I'll second it just to have a discussion, because I was, to have that discussion, if that's okay.
We are there now.
Okay, so why not 20? What he's asking for, because he's got 38 that's not been budgeted for.
Right.
And that would allow us another 18,000 to fool around something else. And we can always repurpose it if we don't spend it. He doesn't, just because we give it to him, doesn't mean we can't take it back.
Just because
Yeah,
we give
you
it to him means he could spend it.
Sure, but he always, everything he spends, that's an emergency fund that it is real time if an emergency comes up. So
Right.
we're gonna be well aware of what the spending could be.
We might, or he might,
Well,
in an event.
sure.
I guess there's a
But that's the
presumption
point
that
we
if we
need.
give
Yeah.
him X number of dollars in this, that also goes with that, the authorities.
Sure it does.
Spending authority.
But that's why we have these reviews to make sure people are spending all their money. They may not be, or they may be. But on an emergency, then we're still gonna be faced with funding it out of somewhere. Even if it's
Right.
underfunded. It depends on the emergency.
Right.
We don't know.
I guess why I said 10 too, to answer your question, because you said why
I was just
10.
asking.
I won't fall on this sword, but hopefully this EMPG grant reimbursement, hopefully we can all agree at some day to say that's going into OEM fund and not the general fund. Because that's what, this year it was paid out of general fund. That's why that money went back to general fund. So my motion would be to borrow that or rob that from the general fund to fund this request. But it's not going to leave a hole in the general fund other than whatever we take out, which is what I was trying to
Right.
minimize.
It doesn't leave a hole in what we see as a record of what's in the
Right.
general fund. It's just there.
Right,
now. It's a
because
completion.
the initial funding, the grant requirements, I forget the word they use there, that we have to meet those requirements of the grant, that money came out of general fund. It did not come out of emergency management.
That's right.
So I'm just trying to minimize the impact is the only reason, really.
I think
So
I would hope we wouldn't spend any of it,
Hope there's no.
but you can go through 10, well, you can go through 20 grand in a heartbeat.
Sure.
In today's day.
And that could happen on a Saturday or Sunday. He could commit to that money and we'd never know about it until probably Monday.
Exactly.
Keep you in touch, because if I'm spending that at that rate, you're gonna have to come up with some more.
At the risk of adding time here, I would just ask the question of the purpose of it, because I'm not sure I totally understand. And we do have monies for the county that are for emergency. So I guess, what delineates this
Right.
from an emergency fund?
Yeah.
What would the reasoning for this?
Yeah, I
particular
mean,
amount of money?
It's a great question, but this would be this would carry with it the spending authority for him to spend that money on whatever came up during an emergency. That's the big difference to me.
It is, and
And
that's,
that makes total
and that makes sense if you're in, what he is the traffic cop for all emergency responders. And in order to do that, he has to have some money to deal with, and he has to be able to commit his resources, our resources, to that action. So it saves some time. He won't have any authority to go do anything if we don't give it to him. And that's true. So he's got his own funds, and he has a job description that says you will do this within these boundaries. But the emergency comes up and it requires the ability to react to it. And
Yeah.
he needs enough to react.
And hopefully, we don't have to hear about meals anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
That's way outside of our realm. But if we don't give him some operating capital, then we're gonna continue to hear
Yeah,
about
he's
it.
got to be able to.
But I wouldn't be opposed to coming back and revisiting that if in fact he went through that 10,000 between now and the end of the year. I was just trying to minimize the impact, because we actually are creating a, whatever that dollar amount is, that's gonna be a hole in the general fund.
And I just, you'll be reimbursed another about $9,000 here within the next couple of weeks. It's actually 46,000.
Great.
Thank you. No, I think that's good for me to know, but also good for the public. That, we do have some emergency funds set aside. This would be for the expedient and incidentals of
Right.
an emergency.
He could order porta potties and know he has the spending authority to pay for it.
Right. And I don't have a problem piecemealing it as long as he's on top of it to get to us in time so he can keep operating if it is.
But do I have to come back and we have to have a special meeting to be able to do that? That's why I
Yes.
set it at 20,000 to eliminate.
Oh, I thought you said 20 to 25,000.
Well, I did, but I was negotiating.
Oh.
Based on
I
your
could-
experience, we're going to trust you to give us good advice.
Based on my experience, 20,000, it's about 50% less than the other counties, but I think it's what we could afford.
I'll make a friendly amendment and restate my motion if that's all right. Save us having to go through the voting process. I would move that we authorize $20,000 transfer from general fund to OEM's emergency fund. I don't even know if there is an emergency fund, but I'm sure you can.
To be created.
An OEM emergency line item, is what he's asking.
Would it be more efficacious if I came back with a budget resolution that did that, and then we could just have one item of business to handle it?
Let me ask this question first, then I'll go down that path. It's his budget line that he's got. He can put anything in there without us passing a resolution once we approve his budget for everything he's asked for. Right now, it sounds to me he's asking for the use of the money in his, no, he's asking for additional funds into his OEM budget in order to have that line item. So once we approve that, it doesn't matter. I think that's what we're trying to, if we do approve that, it stays in his line item, his OEM.
Well, but we'll have to have a budget, a resolution sometime.
Right, at some point.
Either now or.
For his
year, right?
going future, he's gonna always have, here's how I'm racking up my budget within my thing. We're gonna squeeze him. So we don't need as much emergency stuff this year because he didn't use it last year, whatever.
Procedurally, I would suggest that a resolution
Yeah.
at the end of the month would
Add
handle all
more.
of this, because otherwise there
Sure.
doesn't even exist a line right
Right.
now anyway.
Okay, so you'll create a line in the resolution.
Line
With the
item where?
understanding, because
A
we
line
did
where?
incur expenses from the Vermont fire and the North Creek fire, and I would like to pay those invoices.
So back to my question, line where, Brady?
To be determined in the budget.
No, no, it's not what it sounds like to me, you're gonna make a resolution, either we're gonna put money into his line, or you're gonna have another line that he can draw from. Is that where you're trying to couch it?
There would be adding a new line item, possibly two, if we want to handle the EMPG.
Right.
From here on out, we handle that.
Okay.
we get it moved from general fund into that revenue, and then there's the addition of an expense account, which would be an emergency incidental line of some
So
sort.
that expense account could be a separate place, or could it be an OEM's budget line?
This is all under this is all under his fund.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
That's where I am.
Yeah.
Okay, it sounded like you were making it a separate line item outside of.
No, so when object would be the word, object line item would be
All right,
under that particular
Okay.
fund.
that makes sense, because then we keep track of the fund. That's all I was asking.
And I hear what he's saying. I have no problem with the resolution, but I have invoices that need to be paid before the end of the
Hamburger
month,
smell.
budget cycle. So if I get that account number, even if the funds are not moved in there, it's gonna show a negative, but then it'll show a positive once we-
No, because unless we do the resolution, there won't be an account.
That's right.
So would the resolution be approved prior to
Oh,
this month's invoices or after?
it could, to me, is just listening to that. We're approving $20,000. It's gonna be approved today. It's gonna sit somewhere. He can write a check on that, wherever it is, if it has to be done sooner. I mean,
Yes, if he does, then obviously the starting amount on
Would
this
be less.
emergency incidental fund will be that
that's
much.
correct. That's correct.
Understand your need to pay invoices, but typically they wouldn't get paid till the end of the month anyway.
That's right.
So,
We'll make sure that it's accurate. reflects those.
okay.
There you go.
So you okay with the motion of creating a resolution to establish those accounts and fund it with $20,000?
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to create a resolution to
Would you like me to read the motion?
Please.
I have it.
do you have it?
So I have to earmark 20,000 from the EMPG grant reimbursement for an OEM emergency fund.
Via a resolution of a budget resolution, correct? It's a little funky.
Seems redundant to me.
Yeah.
That we would just have a resolution at the end of the month and that we could just.
It's gonna have the dollar amounts in the resolution.
Right.
All we're doing is earmarking $20,000 on this. On this,
So that's
we don't have to buy a resolution. We're gonna allow $20,000 to be spent.
Those in favor,
You smell that? I know, that's why I'm.
those in favor of said motion signify by saying
There's
aye.
a motion, I love it.
Aye. I wouldn't
It's
have
10,000 more than I want to trust him, but hey,
Yeah, I know, you appreciate it.
Okay, consideration of credit card designate officer.
How in
I
the
think
world?
This
that
would
came
be
from, you know, who.
Mr.
All right.
This is Jackie's.
The other
assistant.
shady guy moving forward. So I sent this out. This is the resolution. This came directly from UMB Bank for the credit card. The only thing this does is add me as an officer. That way I can start looking into what this could look like. I think I mentioned before, but just to make sure it's clear, we currently have a UMB account that Kelly and Virginia are on. And so instead of having to go through a brand new application process and everything like that for a new credit card company, we just can start adding and increase, we can add credit cards and increase limits of our current account. And so this just gives me the ability to do some of that. But that's all this is.
Okay, this is easy. I move that we appoint Brandon Wilson as the designated credit card officer.
As Director of Finance.
Does that work? We don't have to reference this document specifically.
We might reference that specifically. Because
Would you like? to
that,
read
that's the one that,
off the
it
title
does say
of
that we need to approve that resolution.
Organization.
That's their
resolution. Oh,
resolution.
it's their Okay, that makes more sense now that I see I had it, but I didn't look at it. Yeah. Okay, so I move that we appoint, I move we approve a resolution to appoint Braden Wilson, the credit card designate officer.
And for clarification, this is not a county resolution. This is United Business Bank resolution.
Right,
Because-
we approve the UNB resolution as presented.
Because if anybody read the minutes, they'd go to start looking for our resolution. So if it's a UMB resolution, then it should be good.
And you'll have a copy of this anyway, once you can.
Yes.
Okay, so
Second.
motion and a second on the floor to approve the UMB resolution making Braden M. Wilson, Director of Finance, as a designated officer for
Credit card designated officer.
any further discussion on that? Those in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
Congratulations.
We did this last
Okay,
time.
last item we did take care of when I brought it up because I did not realize it was on the bottom of the list.
I
So-
didn't either. to be
I didn't
honest.
either.
So we took care of that last item there. Gentlemen, does anyone have any additional items?
Not I.
I
Today?
do, sir.
I know one.
I've asked JC to run out and invite everybody to come in.
I'm gonna burn the burgers.
So when they get in here, if I may.
You may.
Thank you.
That man already go get a hamburger.
Yeah, he was the cook.
There's several
He's the
that
cook.
have already got.
Hey,
We don't,
hamburgers.
we need you guys.
we don't sign on this, correct?
Get in here. Quit hiding around the corner. Anybody else out there?
No, we're everywhere.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm hearing strange voices for,
I am too. Nobody else in that room?
Yes.
Oh, there is. Okay.
Yeah.
So as an additional item of business, I just, of course, want to thank you guys for doing this today. That's not why I asked you to come in. What I asked you to come in was, I had mentioned this early on. I'm not sure we got a lot of traction, but I had requested that maybe we unofficially name this picnic as a Lynn Legree Memorial Picnic or whatever. And so I just want to throw that out for the record. This is, I think, our third year of meeting down here, but moving forward, I would like us to see maybe invite Lynn's family and all that and kind of make it a little more formal memorial service. It's a suggestion to you guys as the airport board, you do what you want with it, but I just wanted to throw that out again.
Yeah, we wholeheartedly agree, and we thought about that. We did reach out to see if Jeannie was available
Yeah,
or
she's-
not, but we wholeheartedly agree with that. Been sorely missed and
Yeah.
will be for quite some time.
So our annual airport meeting could be in his honor.
Lynn Legree Memorial Picnic Day or
Yeah,
whatever it is.
perfect.
Okay.
Well, maybe we can come up with a little banner or something. I don't know, just
I'll second that.
good.
There you go.
All right, well, that was it. But
I want a
again,
hamburger.
thank you guys for doing this today.
Good.
And you,
They're cooking.
why don't you introduce your family real quick while we're all here together?
And promote her business.
My oldest daughter, Patty, Patricia.
Tell us what Patricia's doing. Yes.
What is Patricia? What
Well,
are
get
you
them in here where we can look at them.
she ran away.
doing? She's opening a restaurant in town.
Wow.
So,
Where Bell's,
Bell's
yeah,
Diner,
the old Pogues building. She's opening.
Oh,
or the Red Carter if you're old
so
enough.
it'll be home.
Yeah, the old Florida, Susie's,
Yeah,
what was the other one?
Palladium.
Clayton, yeah. What's her menu?
It's just gonna be like good home style food that you can't really get anywhere else.
Name
You'll have to
of-
come in to see.
Name of your,
Yeah,
What's the name gonna be?
it's Biza's. It's
Bezos.
Pizza.
Biza.
spelling?
BEEZA.
Visa.
BEZZA. We like the word cafe around here, but nobody uses it.
You can use it.
Okay. Visa's Cafe. Well, congratulations.
Well, all this talk of that's making me hungry
Me
now.
too.
so-
Mr. Chairman, I move,
Jenny,
well, we got a
One more
public
thing
comment. You're
before
right.
you,
Yeah.
adjourn, just to keep it on the calendars, the Air Fest is the 20th of August. We work in conjunction with the Custer County Tourism Board this year, advertisement in the county and external to the county to promote the Air Fest. And we would appreciate it if you could attend and socialize it amongst your family and other folks.
Pancakes. Start time.
7:30, some pancakes,
20 August.
20 August. We're gonna have live music and, you know, a roach coach and all that sort of thing.
Good try. Thanks. Appreciate that.
A Bezos coach,
Hey, it's open.
Visa coach.
All right.
The cafe coach.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, I will adjourn this meeting.